Race fans, it's time for the most famous words in motorsports. Here to give the command, please welcome today's Grand Marshal, First Data CEO and Chairman, Frank Bisignano.
Welcome everyone to the inaugural First Data 500, the 70th anniversary in Martinsville. And drivers, start your engines!
Crank on, you're ready. 24 box, time 500 ready. And
Well, it's beginning to warm up for the drivers at least, and things are about to get intense on the track. 500 laps, 263 miles, and the two stages to start off with will be 130 laps each. Remember, a competition caution at lap 45.
That pit road speed is going to be very tough to maintain. 30 miles per hour is so slow. We're going to have to keep an eye on that all day. See who makes a mistake on pit road by speeding.
Amy Earnhardt pulled the pace car onto pit road and into the garage. Now the field in the hands of the 22 of Joey Logano. Green flags in the air. Martin Truex Jr. up the racetrack. The 24 is going to take advantage of it, tries to get into the inside.
How about Ryan Blaney with a nice move to get into second?
Still hung out on the outside, the 11 of Denny Hamlin, trying to find a way in. The fastest way around the track, right along the curbing.
The cars drive awful right now. They're very low heat in the tires, low air pressure. At Martinsville, it's hard to get going. This first 3 or 4 laps after a start or a restart is very difficult.
Logano, Blaney, Martin Truex Jr., Chase Elliott, and Clint Bowyer currently the top 5 as Denny Hamlin finally is able to slide in right behind the 14 of Bowyer.
And you instantly see why we talk patience here, riding on board with the 4 of Kevin Harvick. You know, he's not running the laps as fast as he can run with traffic. It's all about patience. You can only get in the gas as hard as the car in front of you. So as he follows his teammate Kurt Busch, a little bit of patience right here back to the gas, trying to turn underneath him and complete a pass.
Obviously, Eric Almirola is stuck on the outside.
Look at how tight this is up front. Ryan Blaney's been putting the bumper to the back of the 22 of Logano. We'll see how long the patience lasts with the 21. And again, right up to the bumper, the 22 of Logano. There, the 78 look to the inside of Blaney.
You can see why it's so difficult to pass here. It looks like the 21 of Blaney may be a little quicker than Joey Logano. Watch him roll the middle of the corner. Actually gains on him, but that doesn't help him because the 22 slows the 21 down in the middle of the corner, and then he gets away from him on corner exit. So if you can't beat a guy on corner exit, it's almost impossible to pass.
And Jeff, an interesting dichotomy here because you have Ryan Blaney, who's in the playoffs, Martin Truex Jr., who's in the playoffs, but Joey Logano, who is not. Remember, they had that win earlier this year at Richmond. They were basically disqualified from the race afterwards because of an infraction that NASCAR found. So they, in essence, do not have a win this year. So a win at Martinsville today to Joey Logano would mean everything. For these guys behind him means it would mean a ticket to Miami to race for a championship.
Well, Jeff, you talked about traffic. Traffic and passing isn't just an issue up here for the lead or the second or third place position. How about the 9-time Martinsville winner Jimmie Johnson had to go to the back of the field? Well, he's all the way up to just 29th. You would expect at a wider racetrack he would pass 4 or 5 cars, perhaps a lap in the early laps. Not here at Martinsville. He's been kind of boxed in. This is the first lap he's really had any clear track, and now they're at least single file in front of him where he could try to take advantage of it.
Steve, you talk about being boxed in. One of the busiest guys at the track right now is his spotter, veteran Earl Barbin. Earl was calling as much as 3 wide to the 9-time Martinsville winner. That is sketchy, but fortunately it usually panned out to 1 wide. In this case, clear.
Clear. Something a driver loves to hear. But at a racetrack like Martinsville, It's very rare.
Remember, the end of stage 1 is 130 laps. We know we have a competition caution coming at 45, so you know, Jimmy Johnson has to be on full attack mode. He's got to get as many cars as he can before that competition caution. That'll bunch everybody back up, and then he can go try to get some more after that. Kelly.
We're seeing speed out of that 21 car of Ryan Blaney early, whereas crew chief Jeremy Bullins was really optimistic when I talked to him earlier today. Said they showed a lot of speed in the spring race, although they had some damage, which kind of ended their hopes of a good result then. It also helps that they've been able to feed off the 2 car of Brad Keselowski. They've really been leaning on the notes from that team, who of course won the spring race to help get the setup of this car. They also tested here. He said we showed a lot of speed and consistency, and he was really encouraged by how well Ryan Blaney was getting the hang of this place, which is typically pretty hard for rookies and young drivers.
Yeah, Kelly, it's fascinating to watch Ryan Blaney right now. The 78 car there's a gap now. So Ryan Blaney can start trying other things. When the 78 was behind him, Ryan had to play defense, had to make sure he never left the bottom. Had he done that, then the 78 would have gotten by him. But now, the 21 of Blaney, he started to open his entry up a little bit, not enter right on the curb, trying to find a way around the 22 car. But that flexibility is given to him now because the 78 wasn't right on its bumper.
But Jeff, 2 of these top 4 cars are really going to be a lot of my attention when it comes to that pit stop. The 21 and the 24 car are pitting next to one another. Remember, Ryan Blaney, that penalty last week at Kansas not only hurt him at Kansas, but he had the last pit pick here, Rick. Well, the only pit stall that was left when it was his turn was the pit stall directly behind Chase Elliott. So if they currently run like this, Ryan Blaney's going to come in, stop, and then Chase Elliott's going to have to come around him. That is a recipe for disaster on this tight pit road.
Yeah, and Steve, I actually talked to both crew chiefs about the matter, and both of them basically said that there are ways that they can control their own destiny. For the 24 car of Chase Elliott, they were hoping they would be ahead of the 21 all race long so that they wouldn't have any issues getting into their pit box. For the 21, should he fall behind the 24, their best method will be to kind of short pit and leave a gap to the 24 for an easier exit, but certainly it's something that could become an issue. We'll be watching when these 2 come to pit road.
Once again, when you see a gap in front of a car, that's normally meaning they're holding up the cars behind them, and we just saw right there, Brad Keselowski made the pass on Clint Boyer. Out front, Joey Logano has led since the drop of the green flag. Catch all the action of NASCAR on NBC with the NBC Sports app. You get closer with alternate camera angles, driver stats, and track information. You can get it anytime, anywhere. Still out front, Joey Logano, 26 laps in the books, coming up on 27 here that he will have led. Again, a competition caution coming at lap 45. And now his teammate, Brad Keselowski, is running back in the 4th position. Let's listen in on spotter communication from the 2.
Both guys are bottom extreme. Larson tight behind you. Has the shallow diamond to get the good around the center and off. I'm not sure if something changed, but when I mentioned what the 42 was doing, we just took off. We moved up just a touch in the center, and it really gave us drive to the 11.
That was spotter coverage presented by Liberty Mutual Insurance, helping drivers worry less.
Once again, spotters doing a great job of communicating and just letting Brad Keselowski know that some drivers had started to use a little more racetrack in the middle of the corner. And that's what Joey Meyer told Brad Keselowski. And when he did that, he started coming. And right now, Keselowski has picked up 5 spots, and he has the fastest car on the racetrack.
And Jeff, he's been the fastest car on the racetrack for about the last 5 or 6 laps. They have moved up a little bit, but he's also gone low to pass cars as well. I talked to Brad right before he climbed in the car. He said, this competition caution actually kind of hurts us a little bit. He said, lap 30 and on, that's where my car takes off. I just need a little while to get my car running. And Jeff, you've been in this situation at Martinsville before where sometimes it takes a while to get your momentum, get your car going in the right direction. Brad's certainly one of those drivers who's better on the long run here at the paperclip.
Yeah, Marty, I think this racetrack may be one of the tracks that you see that the most, where you'll see a car take off and be really fast, but then can't run good on the long runs, and the vice versa. You heard, Keselowski's report was that his car was better on long runs, Steve. And if you're going to have a pick, that's what I want at Martinsville. It seems like you get a fair amount of long runs here.
Yeah, that's the idea, but how do you take care of your car? How do you make a car better on long runs? I think the 41 of Kurt Busch has the best camera to show how you do that. We're going to take a peek inside this 41 car and look at his and see how his feet work. The left side's working the brake right here, and you see it has a lot more finesse than you think, Rick. He's just not stomping on the brake pedal. He kind of gives it a nice hard shot into the corner right here. But now look how softly he kind of comes off the brake. And then the right side of this is his throttle. And everyone has to run a throttle stop, which actually stops the pedal from over traveling. That's this area right here. We notice now there's a gap between the pedal and that stop. And then watch as he slowly goes to the throttle. You know, right there, he was never against the stop. So he's running part throttle there, letting the 5-car go, but also saving rear tire. Dave?
Steve, he's lost a couple of spots since the start of the race. The main reason being at the 3/4 mark of the corner, he describes the car as swinging loose. He'll be happy for that lap 45 competition caution.
I don't think that's a bad problem to have in this race at this time, though, Rick, because we keep talking about this concrete surface and how the rubber will be put down. Oh, we got a caution. We got the 13 around and the 17 of Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
Ty Dillon in 13 around in turn 2.
Fired up here.
Lap 35, competition caution not scheduled until lap 45.
See some damage on the front of Ty Dillon's car, the left front nose area. You're running 25th and 27th. 13th was running 25th. See the 13 car kind of up the racetrack a little bit, and it's Michael McDowell, I believe. They made contact.
And that's how it works. You stack up. The 17 really had nothing to do with the original spin, but as they all check up, his car comes around.
NASCAR is letting us know that this will be the competition caution. So that's a little bit unfortunate, I believe, for the 48 team of Jimmy Johnson if they wanted to try maybe a little bit of a strategy move.
Yeah, if this wasn't the yellow, I think you could have came and took some tires now, maybe stayed out underneath the competition yellow. Why you can't take fuel, or couldn't have, if this wasn't the competition yellow, you can run 130 laps. So you know you're going to get an end at stage 1, but now that we know what it is, it'll be interesting to see at only 35 laps. I expect to see most cars on pit road. I expect 4 tires, but will anybody risk 2? I wouldn't, because I expect a long green flag run for this stage. Just put 4 tires on it, kind of make some adjustments. Look, there's still 463 laps to go. I don't think there's any reason to start gambling yet to try to get any track position.
Yeah, I think the only reason you would be trying to get stage points. 130 laps to the, till you have stage. This lap 130 is into stage 1, so that would be the only reason. Still 93 laps to go till you get there, though.
Kelly.
So we'll see that 21 and 24 pit next to each other. The message to Ryan Blaney in the 21 was to pit short because he'll have the 24 coming around. Ryan Blaney said that it was loose in, and the center was getting tire air pressure adjustment for the 21. 24 of Chase Elliott. He said car was not bad. It was pretty good early, a little free off the turn later in the run. 4 tires and an air pressure adjustment, Marty.
Brad Keselowski had gained a handful of spots. He comes in running 3rd. Kelly Paul Wolf said, you want any adjustments on the car? He said, I wouldn't touch it, leave it alone. So no changes here on the 2. Meanwhile, his teammate a little further forward, Joey Logano, led every lap so far in this race. He said his car was building tighter. He was adjusting the brake to go along with that. Logano wins the race off pit road. Brad Keselowski picks up a spot as well.
And we look at that race off pit road brought to you by Kroger Click List. Take a look at Kyle Busch. 5 spots he made up on pit road. You're watching the NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series first data 500 from Martinsville Speedway. NASCAR Drive is NASCAR.com's live race day companion. It's now available on your mobile device. Never miss a lap with NASCAR Drive. Visit NASCAR.com/drive for your PC, tablet, or mobile device. Time now for our Fresh Take, brought to you by Subway, and it's already been an interesting day for the 48 team. Has to go to the rear because of a spin in qualifying earlier today.
Well, when you get in the back of the pack, this is what you deal with. So you're going to see 3 wide, 2 wide, fender banging already. Very difficult when you get further back.
Saw he was just in front of the 95 of Michael McDowell there, who was involved in that first accident, first caution that came out. which was also then the competition caution. Steve, we mentioned earlier that fuel window allows them to get from the drop of the green flag all the way to the end of the first stage anyway, but now they were able to top off. They'll easily get there. What kind of strategy can you play now, or is it just aggressive driving to get to the front?
I think the best strategy right now is make the right adjustments. Every driver we've talked to has said this track is going to continually change. I don't think it's changed much yet, only 43 laps into the race, but it's going to go, I think, in a much tighter direction as the rubber gets put down on this concrete surface.
Well, and another strategy we're seeing right now is Joey Logano. He's P1, but he's taking the outside. That clearly is an effort to work with the two of Keselowski to try to let him get down in front of him. Marty.
Jeff, actually, it's not an effort. That was a choice by by Joey Logano to go up in that high line. In fact, Joey Meyer told Brad, no deal here. That was his choice to go up high. We'll see how it plays out, though.
Field approaching the Geico restart zone here in Martinsville, and they bottle up right behind that lead row, and it was a Penske front row, but Logano able to jump out in front of the two from that high line. But we saw him bottle up about 4 or 5 rows back.
Well, Logano looked like he just did not go. He was in the restart zone when he went, but it looked like everybody was anticipating that he was going to go early, and it just stacked everybody up.
Logano able to jump out in front of the two of Brad Keselowski. Now the 21 trying to hold off the 18. We had mentioned when he came off pit road that Kyle Busch had made up 5 spots on pit road. Kyle Busch has led the last 15 races. That is a record for consecutive races led. Now he wants to continue to add to that. He's working his way toward the front in the top 5. And it's side-by-side for position between Blaney and Kyle Busch.
How about Chase Elliott in that 24 car? He saw a hole behind the 78. He just hung a left, trying not to get hung out on the outside.
Well, one thing I noticed is, as you mentioned, that restart stacked up. The nose of the 24 has some damage. Now, I don't think it'll affect the handling of the race car, but, you know, you just never know how these radiators are mounted. So now you can see right there, the lower grill's kind of smashed in. So where is that bumper bar in relative to the radiator now? Is something closed up? Is there now something rubbing? Or is it just very close where the next contact might actually break the radiator? So those are the things you got to watch through the course of 500 laps here.
Steve, that damage happened very, very early in this race, and Chase asked the team to look at it, and they said it looked good. So right now I haven't heard any more conversation about it.
Out front, Brad Keselowski has taken the lead away from Joey Logano. And still, the 18 and the 21 fighting for the 3rd position, side by side.
Now the 21 is stuck on the top, and this is kind of what happens, right, Jeff? So now the 18 has got the 21 up a lane. The 78 is going to do all he can to follow the 18, to fill that bottom lane. Chase Elliott will then do the same. Once you get a guy out of the preferred groove, you try to keep that line coming on the bottom.
That the sole mission right now, the spotter on the 21 car, is to get him down. If there's a hole behind the 18, let him know that so he can slide in behind the 18. But Martin Truex Jr. is not having anything to do with that. Marty.
Hey, Jeff, remember we told you Kyle Busch was saying, yeah, we were fast when it was 80 degrees here in the test and fast yesterday when it was 60. Not sure how fast we're going to be when it's 40. Well, I think we've answered that question. He is pretty good right now, trying still to get by Ryan Blaney. That outside holding up awfully well. But when your pit crew delivers a 10.8 second stop, Jeff, as a driver, makes you pretty happy, doesn't it?
Oh, that's great. That's the best place to pass him, Marty. Easiest place for the driver, but I am impressed with this outside line. We just saw Joey Logano pick the outside on a restart, but then the 21 of Ryan Blaney, he's hanging tough up there. So the outside's coming in quickly today.
Dave.
Rick, the 14 car of Clint Boyer was running in the top 5, is outside of that by a wide margin. Now that's because when he was on pit road, the rear air gun would not change directions for the tire changer, and so he lost a number of positions before that was rectified.
Look at this. It looks like Blaney might make the pass here on the 18 and be able to get down to the curb. After all that work, Blaney able to stay up in 3rd.
Well, we saw yesterday Noah Grassley got his first win in the Truck Series on a restart. He passed the leader on the outside. So, listen, this new tire that Goodyear brought here in the spring, same one this time, it's laid rubber on this racetrack and has made that second lane work very well.
Brad Keselowski is out front. Then it's Logano, Blaney, Kyle Busch, Truex Jr., Elliott, Larson, Hamlin, Harvick, and Eric Jones in the top 10.
We talked about that 24. It looked like he had a little nose damage. Jeff, I thought it happened on the restart. Joey Logano was controlling the race on the outside of the front row, and as he rolled in the restart zone, it just seemed like everybody expected him to go. So right here you see 37 miles an hour. He stays pretty consistent here. I think a mile an hour or two is acceptable if he changes. But if you watch, there's no change. If anything, he just accelerates. So the 22 of Joey Logano did not slow the field down, didn't brake check, didn't play any games. That's everyone else just trying to guess, and they're trying to push him into the restart zone. Joey Logano wisely said, no, no, no. I get to start this race, and I'm going to start where I want, and he chose a little bit later in the zone.
But his teammate has been able to get by him, so Keselowski is out front. Now the two have separated themselves. Keselowski and Logano are currently a second and a half in front of Ryan Blaney. Now again, Kyle Busch and Ryan Blaney had a pretty good battle going on for that third spot, but a 1.4 second gap separating Logano and Ryan Blaney right now.
And this is really the time in the race where you're starting to learn more about your race car. The race started, you were on the same tires that you qualified on. Now you have sticker tires for the first time. So now you're really starting to learn, give your crew chief that information, exactly what my car is doing right now, but you're going to have to keep up with the racetrack. We just saw and talked about the rubber getting on the racetrack. That's going to change the way these cars drive.
Well, and you saw on the left side of your screen, you had, out of the helmet cam of Dale Earnhardt Jr., you see his teammate Jimmy Johnson just in front of him. Jimmy just made that pass up to 18th after starting in the back. You mentioned about the track changing and adjustments. I think that's what makes Jimmy Johnson and Chad Canal so good here with 9 wins, is that Jimmy, even though he has dominated in the win column, doesn't lead the majority of the race. They just always seem to be making the right decisions, Rick, on chassis setup, as now we have the 38 backwards in turn 4.
David Reagan is around and going the wrong direction right now as he's trying to get it turned back around. He's going to back up onto the curb.
And with this quick yellow, Rick, I think the leaders are going to have to start really making decision on tires. They have 8 sets of tires in the pits. They've all used a set, so all the leaders have 7 sets left. This was a good shot at what happened to 38. He's kind of sideways coming into the picture.
Yeah, you see the 17 way up the racetrack. Wonder if the 38 of Reagan was trying to make a move on corner entry, and 17 saw it, felt it, stayed up the racetrack. David ended up getting spun out.
Well, before the race, we heard Brad Keselowski had this conversation about the cycle. When I cycle to the back, well, this is what we're going to talk about. I don't expect the leaders to pit, but somebody's going to. In the middle of the pack, they're going to come get tires, hoping that perhaps there's another yellow in 20 or 30 laps, and then they might stay out. So these are the decisions, which you have no idea, Jeff, which side of the cycle you want to be on, but you kind of have to pick. And these early yellows, you're going to have to decide which strategy you're going to go to.
Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in 17 is going to get the free pass to get back onto the lead lap after being involved in the first accident of the day. Stenhouse Jr. running 36th right now, so that means that there are only going to be 4 cars that aren't on the lead lap.
Well, think about this for Keselowski, Blaney, Busch, Truex, top 5. You know, they're all racing for a championship. And can you afford to pit right now with only 67 laps to go before the end of stage 1? I would think you couldn't.
No, I think they're going to commit to this set of tires. You see all the leaders stay on the racetrack, but someone's going to come to pit road farther back into the pack. The question is who? Who would be the first driver to try to make a move? And here it is, Jimmy Johnson in the 48. He knows he has to be on the offensive, so he comes to pit road, and doing that, he drags a lot of the cars behind him, so he may not give up too many positions and have brand new tires as he came from the 18th position.
And down that slow pit road, Dave.
Most of the drivers knew they could make it to the end on fuel, as Jimmy had pitted as well last time, but they'll come down, make further adjustments, fresh tires for Jimmy Johnson on this one. Just made a little bit of an air pressure adjustment on that first stop. The car was a little bit snug on the throttle, but it did turn, and it was kind of a complex issue there for Jimmy, but they believe they've had it closer on this quick run.
Jimmy Johnson led about 10 cars onto pit road.
Rick, if you're wondering, the line at the hot dog stand here inside the infield is still running 3 wide, running those same hot dogs, those same red style that you've seen here since 1947. They're running Valladales here, but $2, Rick. I don't know if you can get a better hot dog. And Jeff Burton found out on Twitter, the only way to get these is loaded.
Thank you, Rudd. That is definitely one of the trademarks of Martinsville Speedway, and that restart very tight again on the front row.
Interesting, though, that Brad Keselowski on the top of the racetrack seems to be making it work. This is better than I think we've seen in races past here.
Does complete the move around the 22 of Logano from that high line, and now the 18 is trying to make that high line work as he gets in front of the 21.
I think he's going to make it work. A good launch off turn 2 got him in front of the 21.
And Keselowski moves up the racetrack. Here comes Logano on his inside. Elliott outside of Ryan Blaney. The outside line has worked a few times on restarts. Not only for those at the front in row 1 on the restart, but for those a couple rows back. They've been able to, we saw it out of Ryan Blaney as he worked so diligently to get around the 18.
See just a little bit of contact with the 78 to 21. It's no damage done to the cars, but you get worried about the sidewall of these tires. They cut when you run into each other. We've seen so many times tires go down because of that. But how about the 21? He was on the bottom battling Chase Elliott, had what you thought was a preferred line. Chase Elliott got a good run, slowed the 21 down, then the 78 took advantage of it. So this outside lane is working today.
Blaney's able to stay in front of the 78. So Martin Truex Jr. tucks in behind him, and that is in the 6th spot. Right now,
you see that right there? You see Blaney with his right hand, he turned those switches on. I'm sure that's brake fans. You run for a few laps with no brake fans on, you get the brake temp up, crew chief spotter says brake fans, you reach over, you get those brake fans on, but the spotter or the crew chief who's ever given that signal really doesn't want to talk when you're in the heat of the battle. So sometimes they'll wait a lap or two and tell you get those fans turned on when you have clean racetrack.
Up front, a very tight battle continuing between Keselowski and Logano. Logano all over the back bumper of Brad Keselowski. And remember, Keselowski in the playoffs, Logano not in the playoffs. And right now, top 7 positions, 6 are playoff contenders. Want to listen into spotter communication from the 2.
Just for your bank here, Blaney was able to get by the 18. He stayed side by side for those 10 laps and was able to get around him using that high line.
He's up on the high line now. That was spotter coverage presented by Liberty Mutual Insurance, helping drivers worry less. Or is it surprising to you, Jeff, to see these guys almost give the guy behind them that inside line?
Well, see, Joey Logano, he gave a little bit of a shove to the 2 cars. His teammate, listen, Joey Logano's not in the playoffs. He doesn't care. He's here to win this race. And yes, I am surprised that the outside has come in this quick. Side-by-side battle for the lead.
How about the fact that 2 Fords running up front? It's been 29 races, only 1 win in those 29 races that Ford has been able to find victory lane. Marty?
And Joey Meyer told Brad Keselowski, listen, you're running side by side there. The 18's only a couple car lengths back. Make sure you fill that gap, so you let the 22 go. But Jeff, I'm wondering, from your vantage point, are you surprised these Team Penske cars are racing each other pretty hard here? There's been no deals on restarts to let this other guy in and be nice on these restarts. They're running each other pretty hard. In fact, the 22 made contact with the 2 a couple of times battling for the lead.
Marty, I think a huge factor in that is that Joey Logano and this 22 team, this has been an exceptionally disappointing year for them. Remember, they won Richmond, but they didn't pass post-race tech. They had the win taken away from them, so they weren't in the playoffs. They did not make the playoffs. So this is a team that many people thought would win the championship, much less not even think about them not being in the playoffs. So I think that Joey Logano, he's out to prove a point. He is out to show that this team and he still know how to win races.
Kelly.
Just behind that group, we see Chase Elliott there in the 24. We've been talking about the damage to the nose of that car. Well, it's been a discussion among the team now, too. Chase asking how bad it was. They said it was about the same as the damage that they suffered here in the spring. He also asked how fragile it is. They said, hey, you'll be fine. Alan Gustafson said, don't use the bumper on the restart, but if you need to do it on the turns, you can use it then. They also made some observations about the 21 on that last run.
Blaney finally made that top work. He got around the 18 on the top. Yeah, I think he's going to pay for it later, though. Yeah, I'm sure right now it's harder on tires.
And obviously the 24 has now gotten around the 21 of Blaney. Chase Elliott pretty happy with the balance of his race car.
Tire management, Rick. That's what Chase Elliott's talking about. While the 21 did make the top work, he had to push his rear tires harder than those other cars. And, you know, we wondered how much tires would be worth. On the left side of the screen, Jimmie Johnson, he pitted from the 18th position, restarted back in 26th. He's already back up inside the top 18, actually in the 16th position, or excuse me, 17th position. So Jimmie Johnson using those new tires, trying to gain on the leaders.
You're right, he is in the 16th spot. As the graphic changes there, he has moved up. He's behind Dale Earnhardt Jr. now, who's running in that 14th spot. He was able to pass Kurt Busch.
And more importantly for Jimmie Johnson, when he looks out of his windshield, what does he see? He can easily see the one car, Jamie McMurray. That's 11th place. So he knows he is now within sight of 10th place of stage points. So that right now is all that's on Jimmie Johnson's mind. How do I get here? He clearly has run this pack down one car at a time, still at 44 laps. You can get into the top 10. Caution off turn 2.
And A.J. Allmendinger's involved. The 27 of Paul Menard had to check up. A lot of damage, though, to the 47 of Allmendinger as he will come to pit road before it's open. He was running 22nd.
4 tires here, 4 tires.
Michael McDowell gets the free pass.
5 tires only, left sides only.
See, Allmendinger was up the racetrack, and 10 car of Danica saw that hole and tried to fill it, and they made contact.
Now, a wise decision by the pit crew to change only left side tires, trying to stay on the lead lap here as the pace car is already on the straightaway right next to them. It's going to be a very close race for AJ. We'll see. He has a much shorter route through the corner here on the inside.
He doesn't want to get caught for speeding on pit road, though.
We'll see what they have to say with the light. Looks like they're going to give him the green light.
Good, don't speed.
You're good, don't speed. So he was able to get out onto the racetrack in front of the pace car.
And that seems so silly, Rick, right? But that right there, 2-3 car lengths relative to the pace car all the way back on lap 88, that could put your, car in a good position or a bad position. As we say, all the leaders come to pit road. We'll see. I bet Jimmie Johnson will stay out and become the leader. Kelly?
And both the 21 of Ryan Blaney and 24 of Chase Elliott told to basically follow the leader for the 21 of Ryan Blaney. He said, I'm wearing the front tires off it. I wouldn't do that if I could get down to the bottom. So they're going to give him some fresh Goodyear rubber, 4 tires and fuel. And Chase Elliott just ahead of him said, hey, the car does what I want it to after a while. So hopefully it stays that way. Marty?
Kelly, going to be interesting. These teams taking tires on right now. We'll have 6 sets left for what it seems like a lot of laps here remaining at Martinsville. For Brad Keselowski, he said his race car was too free. He messed with the track bar, but that didn't seem to help it much. Teammate Joey Logano said he was too free. Entry and on exit for Logano. Kyle Busch once again will gain more spots on pit road. They made adjustments on that 22 car with air pressure.
So the 47 goes around with a little help from the 10 of Danica Patrick. Jeff, earlier we saw you in the Toyota Camry on-track car, and we're focusing in on the curb here at Martinsville.
Well, this curb is very difficult. You can see right there, I believe it or not, I did that on purpose.
Sure.
Drove up on top of the curb. That curb is so difficult. You think about it on this restart that we're getting ready to have, that bottom car, he wants to be right against it, but if he touches that curb, it completely upsets the way the car drives.
Jimmie Johnson has chosen the outside line for the restart. Casey Kane on the inside of row 1.
Kyle Busch beat all those off pit road that pitted. He started out in 9th, has the freshest tires.
We'll see how he does if he makes up some ground quickly. More than likely, he'll make up quite a bit of ground on the 5 of Casey Kane. He hasn't been to pit road since lap 38. That competition caution, the first caution that came out. Oldest tires on the track.
Mission patience. And Kyle Busch right now knows he has the best tires, but you can't just drive through people. You've got to let your tires come up. You've got to wait to take advantage of it. You can see a lot of cars piling up into each other.
The accordion effect. Everyone trying to grab real estate.
Well, this is the cycle. We heard it on the radio of Brad Keselowski. Hey, When I get cycled off from the front, at some point we'll be cycled. Remind me, try to keep the nose on this car.
Corey LaJoie in that 23 car right there underneath the 18, doing a nice job.
Trying to hang on to that spot. Saw Brad Keselowski dive in under the 18.
And it was everything against Kyle Busch's knowledge to jump on the outside and pass a car on the outside. That's just not what you do at Martinsville. But with this outside lane coming in, that's exactly what he did. He jumped on the outside and actually pushed the issue and passed LaJoie by using that. It's just not something you're accustomed to doing because normally there's not enough grip up there to make it work.
Now he's going to go by the 37 of Buescher. Again, Buescher didn't come to pit road, one of those cars that stayed out.
Yeah, on the left side of your screen, you see the 88. He was like the last car to come to pit road, trying to gain back that track position. He's also making that top lane work that you talked about, Jeff. And here it is, the view from the helmet cam, running the top of the racetrack at Martinsville.
Currently 19th, trying to get 18th away from Ryan Newman. There's Kevin Harvick on his inside.
I mean, typically you would think that, you know, what Dale Jr. is hoping for is to try to clear the 4 of Kevin Harvick and then turn left and get in front of him to get in that bottom lane. But look at the speed Dale Earnhardt Jr. carries into the corner. He actually clears the 4 car getting in, and that's, again, I know I've said it 100 times, but it is so unusual to be able to use this outside line. Now what they're doing is they're essentially racing to that 23 because the 23 is backing up. Of course, LaJoie does not have the speed, so the first one to him probably gets by him, and you can see they're going to line up underneath Dale Jr. He's going to get caught behind the 23. Nope, make it 3 wide.
3 wide at Martinsville.
He's going to make it work in that car they call the Gray Ghost, made famous by Buddy Baker. And I love how Junior feels about this paint scheme. He wanted so bad to run it last year, finally getting to run it. His quotes about it, it was his favorite paint scheme of all time in the sport. That is huge. And he reminded us that Buddy was a giant guy. He said it wouldn't have been nearly as cool with a guy only 4'10".
And he's stuck on the outside right now as McMurray tries to get by him on the inside. The 47 of A.J. Allmendinger was on pit road, actually still is physically on pit road, but has now been told by NASCAR that the 5-minute clock has expired and they are officially out of the race. So they'll have to take it back to the garage. Jimmy Johnson has been able to hold on to that top spot. Jimmy Johnson, Casey Kane, 1 and 2. Then it's Austin Dillon, Eric Almirola, and the freshest tires are on the move now with Brad Keselowski up to 5th. Kyle Busch right behind him.
So, Rick, you mentioned Casey Kane in the 2nd position. This is a wonderful job by Darren Grubb on top of the pit box. Not only has he got Casey Kane track position, but Kelly, I think the 5, he should be better than everyone else on how many sets of tires left. He's only been on pit road once today by my count.
Yeah, you're right. The first time we had that, what became the competition caution came out. Casey Kane actually says, even though he's been on these tires since then, that the car still feels really good. And even though Casey's leaving, as we know, to go to be with the 95 team, they've got a lot of left they want to accomplish this year. And he says it's really important to him to finish this season out with the group of guys that have worked so hard to get him where he is in his career.
So only 100 laps into the race, Casey Kane has used 1 set of new tires. Most of the other leaders, Jeff, they've used 2 sets.
One of those cars that has used 2 sets, that 2 car of Keselowski, you know, it's 23 laps to the end of this stage, and you know what he has on his mind. He wants this stage win for these playoff points. See right there, he just drives underneath the 18. And Kyle Busch knew he was faster and let him go.
So Casey Kane running in the 2nd position just in front of Keselowski as Keselowski tries to make the pass. They still have to get by 7-time champion Jimmy Johnson. Keselowski now leads the Monster Energy Cup Series first day to 500 from Martinsville Speedway. You get NASCAR coverage during the playoffs even when you're on the go with NASCAR Mobile. You can even listen to drivers and teams discuss race strategy. You can download it for free at NASCAR.com/mobile. So we knew it was inevitable. Brad Keselowski had a lot better tires than the 48 of Jimmy Johnson. We were wondering how long it was going to take. But this still has to be a big win for the 48 team, starting last and potentially going to earn some points here at the end of stage 1.
Yeah, but these next 14 laps are going to be very important for the 48 because as you've seen the replay of Brad Keselowski getting by, and now the 48 is falling quickly to the other cars that have fresh tires, and it starts with the 18 of Kyle Busch, who's only about 3 or 4 car lengths back, and if he gets to him and gets him off that bottom lane, Jeff, those other cars, the 78 and the 22, will be there very quickly.
Right now, it's almost a sense of desperation if you're driving the 48 car. You know there's 12, 13 laps left. You know you got to get every bit. If you drive too hard, you go slower. If you don't drive hard enough, you're not going as fast as you need to. So it's just an incredible feeling when you know you're coming to the end and you have people coming from behind with better tires.
Logano trying to move that 78 up. Looks to the inside as they exit the turn, but not able to complete the pass. Kyle Busch is closed into 0.3 of a second behind Jimmy Johnson now. Way up the racetrack, went to 78 that time.
But you know, with these two cars racing like this, well, you know, you saw the 22 kind of running the bottom, the 78 kind of running the top. They're running the same speed as the guys around them. It's not slowing them down running these two different lanes.
Well, Rick, for all those fans that keep wanting to know why we keep talking about Jimmy Johnson starting in the back at perhaps his best racetrack with 9 wins, this was earlier today in qualifying, getting into turn 3. You hear the wheel hop, gets loose getting in. This left rear tire just starts bouncing right here, spins out, goes all the way to back because he had to make some adjustments after this accident. So, as you mentioned, nice recovery after starting tail of the field.
And inside 10 laps to go to end stage 1. Keselowski, Johnson, Kyle Busch, Truex Jr., Logano up in the top 5. Then it's Elliott, Kane, Blaney, Austin Dillon, and Denny Hamlin in the top 10. Stage points so valuable for these drivers in the playoffs trying to advance into the championship 4. We know for certain that one driver will get in to the championship 4 based solely on points. Marty.
I don't know that they're so certain, Rick. They're pretty worried about this round, talking to Cole Pearn about Martin Truex Jr. He said, this round worries me more than any round in the playoffs because Martinsville is not our best track. Phoenix has been just an okay track for us recently. Clearly, they'll be very good at Texas next week. In fact, if you look at the numbers, Martin Truex Jr. in the round of 8 tracks, 0 for 70. But Cole Pearn said, I'm not too worried about it. If I get through Martinsville today with a nice solid top 10, we finish on the lead lap, then I feel much better about our chances to get to Miami. But yeah, doesn't hurt that he comes into this round, Steve, does it? With all those bonus points that he earned throughout the year.
Oh, without a doubt. Those points, those playoff points he's earned all year are very important. Well, who doesn't have a lot of those is the 48 of Jimmy Johnson. And Jeff, you and I have been talking how important this race is for the 48. Not a must win, but must run well, must gain points. And he is going to have to battle these last 4 laps trying to hold off the 22.
Dave.
Yeah, he had a little gap there after he got passed for the lead, but then Chad Knaus reminded him, we're racing all these guys. Now remember, this is a team that has only 1 stage win so far this year, so those points have come hard, as now it's going to be 3 wide, 22 getting inside of Jimmy.
Logano takes it 3 wide, but wisely, the 15 of Reese Sorensen backs off as they entered the turn. It's still side by side for position between Logano and Johnson.
Right now, you see this great battle between Johnson and Joey Logano. Every driver in the playoffs is in the top 10, with Denny Hamlin being 10th, except for Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick currently in 13th.
Under 3 laps to go into stage 1, and again, the top 10 all receive points. So fighting for every spot, every position is a point in the top 10, and Logano is going to get by the 48 now. So Jimmy Johnson drops down to 4th. Truex Jr. is 5th. Then it's Chase Elliott in 6th.
And Rick, in its current running order, the only playoff driver not looking to score points is Kevin Harvick back in 13th. The other 7 are all in the top 10.
Under 2 laps to go. Now the final lap. Side by side. Elliott on the inside and the 78. Truex Jr. on the outside. Again, every point matters. Brad Keselowski, as he comes through 3 and 4, he's going to see the green and white checkered flag. Keselowski will win stage 1. And look at that battle. Truex Jr. edges out the 24 of Chase Elliott. Keselowski, Kyle Busch, Logano, Johnson, Truex. They're the top 5. Elliott, Blaney, Kane, and Austin Dillon. Denny Hamlin making up the top 10. You're watching Monster Energy Cup Series racing from Martinsville Speedway. First Data is handing out thousands of Kyle Larson branded preloaded promotional debit cards to race fans throughout the weekend. The promotional debit cards can be used as money at numerous Clover by First Data payment terminals throughout the track for race merchandise, souvenirs, or even the famous Martinsville hot dogs. For more, we go to our hot dog, Rutledge Wood.
Oh, thanks, Rick. That's quite a lead-in. You know, when you've got a half mile of mayhem and a hot dog they've been serving since 1947, wouldn't it be great if you got one of those same cards that Kyle Larson was giving out? Thanks, First Data. You guys are awesome. I'm going to give it to these nice folks right over here. Buy yourself a couple wieners, you guys. Have a great time. Rick, it's amazing down here. A half mile of mayhem.
You just continue to give, Rutledge. Speeding penalty to the 11 of Denny Hamlin. That's the 5th speeding penalty of 2017 for that team.
Well, look at the 11 car. He's on the bottom of the racetrack, on pit road rather, and the radius is shorter there. So you have to be careful using that shorter radius. It's easy to get caught speeding.
Kyle Busch on the inside. Brad Keselowski on the outside. Green flag back in the air. Inside work for Kyle Busch. He's able to stay out front. Now we'll see if Logano is going to get by his teammate. And then it's teammates side by side behind them, the 24 and 48. Keselowski holding strong on that outside line. He makes the pass, and Keselowski will hold on to the 2nd spot. Logano drops back to 3rd. Marty.
Hey, Rick, usually when we ask Steve if he's doing math in his crew chief mind, it's about fuel mileage. Well, today, it's going to be about sets of tires. Steve, it took 3 sets to run the first stage of this race. We're just now in stage 2 and just beginning that. So there's only 5 sets of tires for all these teams to use for the rest of this race. Are you getting worried about that as a crew chief? Because that's a lot of laps for 5 sets of tires.
Yeah, well, I'm not worried yet, but I've definitely made a note of it. You know, this track normally has a long green flag run in the 200 to 300 lap range, but with that second stage that's going to break that up, or the end of this second stage will break that green flag run up, they have to make sure that they manage how many tires they have left.
And again, the 48s with the spin during qualifying, they made some adjustments, sent them to the back of the field, but an impressive recovery. They were able to get up into the top 5, now running in the 6th position after the last pit stop and trying to hang on to that position as we see Ryan Blaney make the move to the inside.
Finally get to see what all of these guys kind of stack up like on the same tires. There's been so many different mixes through the lead, and the 42 of Kyle Larson, he was one of those drivers, Jeff, that as everybody stacked up on the bottom, he kind of fired out to the top and gained 2 or 3 spots right away on that restart. But now that everybody's got single file, he's lost a couple spots in the last 2 laps. So just not the type of race so far, but so much racing to go. But what an emotional week it has had to have been for the 42 Kyle Larson after that engine failure last week at Kansas, eliminated him from the playoffs.
And I know you say all the right things, the team says all the right things, we're just going to go win races the rest of the year, but look at Blaney on the right side of the screen. Jimmy Johnson left a little bit of a hole, and Blaney just fired it in there, wasn't able to make it stick, but an aggressive move. But back to Larson I think it's so hard to really bring the same amount of emotion, the same amount of fire when you no longer have a chance to win the championship. I mean, a lot of people talked about Kyle Larson being the favorite. He was a guy, if you give him a shot at Homestead, he's so good there. He can win his first championship, and now he's not even in the playoffs anymore, and that is devastating.
And Jeff, especially considering this is a racetrack where they put in so much effort. Kyle used to call this his worst racetrack. They came here and tested. In fact, Chad Johnson said, hey, I want you to do me a favor. Call Tony Stewart and ask him how to run better at Martinsville as we watch the battle for third between Chase Elliott and Joey Logano. So yeah, it's tough to come with that same emotion. By the way, for Kyle Larson, a little bit of contact earlier. Water temps 286. Don't seem too concerned about it right now. But again, look at that outside, proven to be strong once again. Joey Logano trying to get around Chase Elliott.
We're seeing these 78. Mark Truex Jr. enter a little bit higher, almost running that second line. He doesn't even have a car beneath him. So Logano trying to get in front of the 24. Chase Elliott way up the racetrack. That battle will continue. Kyle Busch is out front. Playoff time, so gear up with the pit crew and get the latest NASCAR t-shirts, hats, and die-casts at the NASCAR shop. Visit NASCAR.com/shop today for all your favorite drivers' gear. And yes, that's right, the sun has come out at Martinsville. Today's aerial coverage provided by our partners at Smithfield Foods. Now, as a crew chief, are you looking at the weather? Now, all of a sudden, the sun is starting to beat down on this racetrack.
Well, it is, but by looking at the folks in the stands, I'm not sure the sun has brought a lot of warmth. So, I mean, it's the same old question. You start to see the dark line right there on the concrete. You know, that is from the tire rubber being put down, but it hasn't changed a lot over the first 130 laps. I still expect it to change somewhere around lap 250 to 350. Normally that rubber goes down and the handling goes for a big swing, but that's been the conversation all morning long, Jeff, is will that continue to happen with this cooler weather?
Well, we've talked about this outside lane coming in, and the 21 of Ryan Blaney kept working, just working Jimmy Johnson, never could find a way to get by him, and Jimmy was giving him the bottom of the racetrack. Well, Ryan finally had enough. So he just drove in the corner, drove in a little bit deeper than he really should have, and he just ran up the racetrack and ran Jimmy Johnson out of the groove, and that slowed him down. And I think we're going to see more of that, Rick, as this day goes on and the outside groove stays good. There's going to be the temptation just to run the guy out of that outside lane to ultimately make the pass. And then we go back to the 11 car. Remember, he was penalized for speeding on pit road. Well, he has only made his way up to 24th. So it's been tough sledding for the 11 once he got back there.
Denny Hamlin just in front of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. now. So it's Kyle Busch out front. Brad Keselowski, stage 1 winner, running second. Chase Elliott and Joey Logano up in the top 4. Martin Truex Jr. rounding out the top 5. Kevin Harvick's back in 9th. Interesting, Martinsville becoming a 2-groove track. That outside line is working for it. We just saw Casey Kane made it work. Right now, Logano and Kane mixed in between the other 7 playoff drivers up in the top 9. But as you had mentioned, Jeff, Denny Hamlin back in 24th because of the speeding penalty. So the only playoff driver that's not up inside the top 10 right now. And the one of McMurray on pit road.
Saw a bunch of smoke coming off the left rear tire of Jamie McMurray. Well, here's why. He and the 77 of Eric Jones made contact, and a big rub on that left rear tire. Remember here in the spring, the one car had a left rear tire rub. They did not pit, and ultimately it cut that tire, and he ended up getting in a wreck. Well, this race, with that tire rub, they made the decision to come on down pit road and get the tire changed and the fender pulled off.
Just so costly. Really the worst track there is to pit under green. Bristol would be the other one, but you only use half the pit road there. Here, this long pit road at 30 miles an hour, Rick, it's going to cost the one of Jamie McMurray more than 1 lap. Currently scored 2 laps down. I think he'll end up 3 laps down through this.
Let's get a few updates from pit road. We start with Dave.
Restarted 9th and remains in that position now. Kevin described the traffic out there as very muscly a little bit earlier, so having to work hard to get through. But the main handling condition for him, as he said during the last caution, for the first 5 or 6 laps, he couldn't put the throttle down. After 5 laps, it kind of just went away. And so that was what he was dealing with. They made an adjustment for that last time down, Marty.
Martin Truex Jr. right now, Dave, trying to hang on to the top 5. He's in the 5th position, and he said the last run he lost drive off way too early in the run. So what's he doing right now? Take a listen on the radio.
Already trying to save tire a little.
Very quick transaction on the radio, or transmission on the radio, but that's it. He's driving into the corner a little bit higher, trying to save a little bit of tire, so it'll be better at the end of the run, Kelly.
Well, we've been talking about that speeding penalty for Denny Hamlin that's got him back running in the mid-pack. Well, it might be something to keep our eyes on. Denny had issues with the lights on his dash monitoring his pit road speed in practice. His crew chief, Mike Wheeler, told me they'd put a lot of work into it, thought they had it manageable, but it sounds like it might still be an issue. Have a listen.
So Denny Hamlin continuing to work his way up front. He has made it up to 22nd, chasing after Paul Menard, who has that 21st position.
From the 42 to the 78 bucks, last 4 bucks. All right.
They're talking about the speeding penalty and where it was on pit road where he got that penalty. And again, Jeff, you mentioned that was the narrow part. He went down in the lower part of the turn. Time versus distance, he was able to cover more distance quickly. Kyle Busch has a 3/10 of a second lead over Brad Keselowski. There's the 18-2 fighting for that top spot. Lap traffic becoming very difficult to get by. So difficult on spotters here at Martinsville Speedway. This spotter coverage is brought to you by Liberty Mutual Insurance, helping drivers worry less on the track and on the road. Difficult to clear cars when it's a matter of inches here at Martinsville.
Yeah, they're racing side by side in front of you. Keselowski's going to try to jump up on the outside of Busch and push the issue. Now he turns underneath him, trying to make it 3 wide.
For the lead, and on the outside, Kyle Busch trying to get by Danica Patrick.
This is that time in the race, though, Rick. We haven't even seen 200 laps completed, so they need to just understand that lap traffic is going to be a struggle all day long. I mean, I know the 18 and the 2 don't have the best history together, but continue to work together, not giving each other an inch, but at no point do you want to damage your race car with so much racing left.
I think when you see a lap car and you have 2 lap cars racing side by side as a driver, you view that as an opportunity. If you're Keselowski, you say, hey, there's an opportunity for me to use one of these cars as a pick to try to get in front of the 18 and get that lead. 18 in the back of the 6 of Trevor Bayne a little bit.
Kyle trying to work his way around the lap traffic. 16 straight races. I had mentioned earlier about 15 straight. The longest Cup Series streak of active drivers since Jeff Gordon back with 19 races in a row. So 16 races in a row for Kyle Busch, and only 3 races remain. He could tie that record. Right now he's trying to stay out in front of Brad Keselowski.
Jeff, I know in the first stage you had mentioned that Kevin Harvick was the one playoff driver not looking to get stage points. Well, currently 7 of the top 8 all playoff drivers. Only Joey Logano in 4th, the non-playoff driver, and then you have Denny Hamlin, the 8th playoff driver, who's recovering slowly from that speeding penalty, who's battled back into 19th. Marty?
Steve, we got to watch Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch duke it out for the win here in April at Martinsville, so looks like it might happen that way again today. Kyle, pretty happy with the handling of the 18 car. Take a listen on the radio.
Yeah, it's been pretty good. Best it's been all day. Starting and driving off okay. Starting to lose a little bit of drive off here first.
But Jeff, you know, no matter how good your car handles at a place like Martinsville, lap traffic, that can be a game changer, can it?
Well, without a doubt, and he's caught some really good race cars trying to put him a lap down, and on top of that, he has the pressure of Keselowski. I mean, he's not letting him breathe one bit. It is clear that, Keselowski, he said it coming into this race, we've talked about it. They feel like this is a must-win situation. They do not have the speed at the 1.5 miles. They're concerned about going to Texas next week, and the 2 of Keselowski, he's shown that aggressiveness from the very start. His front bumper's been right at the rear bumper of the car in front of him the entire race. Been very aggressive.
He's been out front for 51 laps, Keselowski that is. Logano's led 59, Kyle Busch 57 and counting.
So, Rick, we checked in with Kurt Busch in this foot cam early in a run earlier today. Well, now 52 laps on this run, you can see a little bit different reaction with the brake pedal. So as he starts to accelerate off the corner, you see he's pushing the gas. But now, Jeff, he's going to have to work that brake pedal. He sees it travels a little bit longer. The brakes are, I won't say are starting to fade, but they're just starting to get a little warmer, maybe a little less effective as they were earlier in the race.
Yeah, and watch when he goes to wide open throttle. Remember before he would go partial throttle, then he would go wide open relatively quickly. Well, now, as he goes to throttle, he's still not wide open. Now he's wide open. So he's going to the throttle about the same place, but he's not going full throttle till later because the rear tires just will not support it. Dave.
And Jeff, he just told his team, I can get this car to cut to the bottom of the corner. As you see him going around Carl Long there, making it too wide. But once I get it down there, I can't get it to stay there. Have you ever had that problem here?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if he gets down there, then it gets tight on him. So he drives in the corner. It turns initially really well, and then once it gets to the bottom, it loads up, and now it gets tight. And, you know, a car that doesn't turn at Martinsville is miserable to drive because you can't make lap time. Of course, a car that's loose is miserable to drive also because you're constantly trying to keep from spinning out and wrecking. So that's why it's tracked so hard, is that you have to have good balance.
Well, that's how busy a driver's feet are here at Martinsville, and a great way to see how busy they are is basically from their view. And Dale Earnhardt Jr. is carrying that helmet cam. Just behind him is the 11 of Denny Hamlin trying to recover. Well, Dale Jr. is working on the 3 of Austin Dillon in front of him.
Saw his hand out the window, so that told me that's the 11 car, Denny Hamlin. So clearly he felt like Hamlin was quicker, put his hand out the window, let Denny know, hey, go to the inside.
Dale looks very committed to that second lane, Jeff. Entry to middle and then exits on the bottom.
Dave. Appreciate Junior giving us this view right here through traffic, but as Denny went by, he's got a whole laundry list for crew chief Greg Ives. Real bad on exit. Car jumps over on the right rear. No real grip at all. Wheel hop into the corner. Real bad shake. That's a lot to try to fix.
Oh, I'd say, hey, dude, you started 33rd, you're running 16th. It's okay. Like, I know your car's not perfect. We'll keep working on it, but just stay focused. We need you to get as many spots as you can. We can't work on it until you bring it in here, but you need to give that information.
There are still 302 laps of racing to go from Martinsville, so a lot of time on the track. Steve, you mentioned earlier around lap 350 of this race, it changes. I mean, the track's going to change, so they have to keep up with the changing track, even though the handling might not be ideal now, as we see the 2 work to the inside of the 18. Keselowski and Busch, you mentioned it before, not a lot of love lost between the 2 of these drivers, and they're not afraid to put the bumper to either one. Right now, with Kyle Busch out front, Brad Keselowski's trying to do his best to get by without having to make contact.
For the most part today, we've had a battle for the lead since the green flag dropped. I mean, these cars are just nose to tail, and it's fun to watch the different ideas about how to get around the racetrack. You can see they're both entering high, trying to use as much racetrack as they can, both trying to turn and leave on the bottom.
Rick, you mentioned how cool it was outside. Well, it rained a little bit early today, a little bad luck right here. You don't want to be the guy that has to sit underneath the water blowing off the roof of the pit box on a normal day. Now the whole key is to get this pit box dried up before the next set of pit stops, and in the cold air, that water's not going to want to dry up as normal. Traction in these pit boxes sometimes, Jeff, can be as difficult as it is on the racetrack for the drivers.
Oh, yes. Seen a lot of times pit crew members have fallen down trying to get around the car.
You mentioned it, Jeff. It has been incredible. The top 2 spots have been contested virtually the whole race already. 203 laps have been run, and there's been a constant battle, it seems like, between 1 and 2. Just a few moments ago, 24 and the 6 get into it.
Chase Elliott's stuck on the bottom of the racetrack. He knows the 22's coming on the outside, so Chase is trying to get that 6 up a lane to try to get some room underneath him. And then the 6, I think, just jams the brakes on down the straightaway to prove a point. I mean, I'm trying to go as fast as I can, kind of get off me a little bit here. A little brake check, actually, kind of like see that on the interstate sometimes, Kelly.
Yeah, well, and just after that happened, Chase Elliott said, well, there goes the nose again, as crew chief Alan Gustafson telling him to keep an eye on his temps, but they also told him, hey, just get settled in, turn some laps here. We think it'll be okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes we see road rage on interstates as well, and he just can't afford that.
Closing in on the halfway point of the Monster Energy Cup Series first day to 500 from Martinsville Speedway. 214 laps complete of the 500 laps scheduled. Out front, Kyle Busch now has a little gap between himself and the 2 of Brad Keselowski.
Yeah, Kyle's done a nice job to finally get away from the 2. The 2 was on his bumper for it seemed like 20 or 30 laps. Currently 76 laps on this green flag run, and because of that, you see the cars in front of Kyle Busch. Coming to lap next up, Daniel Suarez, the 18th place runner currently in this 19 car, that orange and white car just in front of Kyle Busch. So we've seen this a lot, Jeff. Long green flag runs, Kyle's starting to catch the back of some relatively fast race cars.
Yeah, but how about Denny Hamlin? He's done a really good job of clawing his way up from the back after that speeding penalty, but you can see right there, there's 44 laps to go in this stage, and right now, Denny Hamlin's goal is to stay in the lead lap. I think he has enough speed to do it, but if he were to get hung up in lap traffic, or the 18 do a phenomenal job of getting through the cars between the 11 and the 18, he will come dangerously close to getting lapped.
Time now for the Toyota driver update. Kyle Busch out front has led 83 laps and continues to lead those laps. Martin Truex Jr. currently 5th. Marty.
Hey, Rick, Kyle Busch very strong. 80 laps into this run right now, and the car just a little bit tight from the center off for Kyle, but that's it. Very little complaints about it. Meanwhile, Brad Keselowski behind him is starting to lose grip from the center of the corner off. So, Steve, 80 laps into a run. I think the track is sort of going through a transition here. Seems like it's taking on more rubber, and you hear more teams talking about being tight now versus being loose early in the race. So how will that change the game now that the racetrack is changing a little bit?
Well, Marty, as long as I've been coming to Martinsville, it seems like every Sunday morning when we have a cool day, the conversation is, will the track rubber up? And I can't remember one that hasn't. So I think this is normal Martinsville. The second half of the race, the rubber goes on the racetrack, and the cars handle very differently. So now the question will be, can Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, the top 3 cars, Rick, even though they seem to have the best cars so far, will the crew chiefs continue to adjust on? Very hard to do, to adjust on a car that can currently run inside the top 3.
And just behind them, a lap down, is the 43 of Eric Almirola. We heard that Almirola will not be driving the 43 next year, and it was just announced this last week that it will be Darrell Wallace Jr. that will take over for the 43 team behind the wheel. So Bubba Wallace will have the full-time Cup Series ride in 2018 with Richard Petty Motorsports.
Jeff, we talk about short track racing and just how much they're on the brakes. We're starting to get into that area, close to 100 laps. 83 currently on this set of tires, where the brakes just get so hot they actually melt the bead of the tires. So that's going to be the next concern. Will these cars be able to make this entire stage under green, or will someone have issues before? Dave?
Steve, I want to talk to Jeff for a second about the track bar adjuster inside the cockpit. As you see Clint Boyer going by Jimmy Johnson, I believe that's for 9th position. Jeff, when you're moving that adjuster up, when you're moving the track bar up, what are you trying to do?
You're trying to make the car turn better, Dave. Raising it up makes it turn better. 55 laps ago, Jimmy had it maxed out, and he's going backwards. Not a good run right now for Jimmy. And it just means they started this run too tight, Dave, and there's not enough adjustment in that track bar to get that thing to turn. But one negative to that track bar getting up, Steve, is that on these long runs, you tend to start to get wheel hop. You still to have trouble getting in the corners, and we saw Jimmy Johnson wheel hop it in qualifying. That track bar high up like that, on old tires, hot brakes, it's easy to wheel hop it.
Let's listen into the 48 radio.
Stay in it, man. Stage point. Stage point.
And right now he's running 10th, which would be 1 point. We know how important even 1 point can be to advance potentially to the championship 4. Denny Hamlin has recovered fairly well. He's 15th, trying to stay on the lead lap. The problem is there's the gap between race leader Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin, who is currently, well, he's one car away from being the last car on the lead lap. That's Ryan Newman in the 31, who's the last car on the lead lap.
Well, Rick, as you said, trying to stay on the lead lap, it took me right back to this race in the spring. The 17 of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and the 18 of Kyle Busch. This was really one of the first big shakeups we've seen because of stage racing. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. going a lap down. He runs the 18 up the racetrack here, coming to the end of the stage. You're going to see right here the battle. Well, here it is, the big shot from the 17. Up he goes. 17 turns underneath him. Ends up costing Kyle Busch the stage win. The 24 of Chase Elliott got it. But as Kyle Busch is now, he's lapping the 31 of Ryan Newman. As he gets around some of these faster cars, what will they be willing to do to try to stay on the lead lap with only 31 laps to go?
Don't think for a minute that Kyle Busch in that 18 car knows that he's going to have to battle that 11 car for the championship. But if you see a guy in the playoffs in front of you that you can put a lap down, that is your goal. You want to do everything you can. I don't care if he's a teammate. I don't care about that. All I know is I'm competing against him for a championship. If I can put him a lap down, that is an advantage to me.
So Denny Hamlin is actually a mere few feet in front of the 18 of Kyle Busch, and Hamlin will try to fight to stay on the lead lap. We'll see how much his teammate gives him that opportunity.
Look at the different approaches. Look how the 11 car is up the racetrack. The 18 right on that curve rolls the center of the corner so much faster than the 11. Lap traffic will play a huge role whether the 18 can get by the 11 or not.
And right now, they're in it heavy. Again, the 11 of Denny Hamlin is the last car on the lead lap, and Kyle Busch is trying to put him a lap down. But the congestion on this half mile.
Jeff, and you just mentioned it, even though they're teammates, I really think Kyle Busch has to see the 11 as a competitor here in the playoffs.
Well, look behind Kyle Busch. You have Keselowski coming that wants this stage win. You can't help your teammate right now. You can help your teammate and give up the opportunity to win this stage.
So the 11 work to the inside of both the 15 and 23 to clear them. The 18 has also cleared both of them. Now the 2 will try to do the same.
That was the last bit of protection for Denny Hamlin in the 11. Now without the lap traffic, I believe the 18 is going to be very aggressive to try to get by him.
See, it entered high this time. Now he's going to turn left, try to get a run and get underneath him. And these are decisions that drivers are going to have to make. At what point do you block? Denny Hamlin's going to be looking out of that left side mirror. When the 18, oh, a little bit of contact.
And the curb there as well.
That unique line of Denny Hamlin, that high entry makes him so hard to pass because he gets such a great run off the corner. If the car right there, as it turns back to the bottom, look how much it accelerates versus the 18. Pulls him a solid car length on corner exit.
There's still 25 laps to go in the second stage. Can Denny Hamlin hold him off for 24 laps now?
Not sure the front bumper of the 18 is going to allow him 24 laps. I just think he's going to run out of patience as the 2 closes to his rear bumper.
And once again, the battle for the lead heats up as the 2 has caught the back bumper of the 18. Nothing like attending a NASCAR race. And now the playoffs are in full steam. And most of the intense racing taking place right here at Martinsville. We're seeing it like we've never seen before. Visit NASCAR.com/tickets to purchase tickets at an upcoming race near you.
You and I both got excited, Jeff. We thought the 2 of Brad Keselowski was going to make it 3 wide. He chose not to, fell in line behind the 18.
Yeah, I was getting ready to yell caution.
The 18 holding on to the lead. Keselowski, though, has tried the inside line. He's tried the outside line. They're still trying to get by the 11. The 11 trying to stay on the lead lap. Marty.
Rick, this battle for the lead has been amazing, and it's been most of this race. 15 laps to go here in stage 2. Brad Keselowski trying to get another stage win. And Jeff, you talked about how the team has really viewed this race as their must win in the round of 8. I asked Paul Wolfe, I said, are you ever hesitant to tell Brad, hey, we've got to win this weekend? He did it at Talladega. Brad followed through with a win. He said, nope, because I'm a realist. I know at Texas we're not going to be as strong as maybe we should be. Phoenix has been a big question mark, so we know, hey, it may not be fun to go into a race saying you have to win, but we know this is our best shot to Miami today at Martinsville.
Well, Marty, I think understanding your situation is smart, and to think that the 2 is all of a sudden going to find a lot of speed and go win Texas, I think that's unrealistic. And they might do it, but it would be, I don't want to say remarkable, but I wouldn't think that that's going to happen. So I think coming to this race with the understanding of where you stack up as a team, that's really smart.
Well, as we look at these 2 battle for this stage win, you know, 10 points will go to the stage winner. Now, all season long, we've been talking about these playoff points, Rick. Well, they won't get a playoff point for the simple fact that when we go to the final round, which is 1 race at Miami, it's 4 drivers, 4 championship. No points, nothing matters. The highest race finisher is going to win the championship. So now it's just back to who can gain the most points in this round simply to advance.
Well, now they've caught, the 11 is caught the 5 of Casey Kane. Casey Kane's running 12. Casey Kane is going to put up a fight right here. He needs to stay in the lead lap. So the 11 is a little bit quicker than the 5, but the 11 is going to get slowed up in racing the 5 of Casey Kane. Kelly.
Yeah, not a position I think Denny Hamlin expected to be in, just trying to hang on to the lead lap. We said, hey, statistically, this is probably our best shot to get a win, but they don't feel like it's a must-win. They still feel like they can go out and win each and every week, and as Denny put it, hey, this is only 33.3% of the tracks in this round, so it's not any more important than the other 2. That is, of course, unless they win.
Here comes the 2, Keselowski working that outside line. Can he get the advantage? Now the 18 goes to the inside. The 11 moves up the racetrack. This is to keep Denny Hamlin off of the lead lap. He can't complete the pass. Hamlin stays on the lead lap, but he moves up a line. We'll see if the 18 of Kyle Busch is able to take that spot away.
Almost like the 11 has moved up on purpose, feeling like that he can hold the 18 off if he doesn't give him the top of the racetrack. The key is going to be how you catch lap traffic. We know Casey Kane's in the lead lap, but just ahead of Casey Kane is the 10 of Danica Patrick, the 30, I'm sorry, is the, my TV screen changed, I'm sorry. Just ahead of the 11 car is going to be the issue. Right here, the 5 and the 83. So that 83, side by side with Casey Kane, how these cars catch this side-by-side battle will impact who can get by the 11.
And the 11 is, again, fighting to stay on the lead lap. He has just 6 laps to go. If he can stay on the lead lap, that's huge, because right now there are only 13 cars on the lead lap.
Well, and it's huge because he's been able to do this now for 20 laps. So with 246 laps to go in this race, he'll have an opportunity to recover and try to get back up there in that track position. Does he have car enough to win this race if the track continues to swing his direction handling-wise?
The 8 guys look behind them. The 22 car is coming quickly as well, and Joey Meyer just reminded Brad Keselowski of that, and he said, don't worry about that stuff in front of you. The 22 is about to catch you for second. You worry about what's in front of you, I'll worry about what's behind you.
And so it is heating up now. Just under 4 laps to go from Martinsville in stage 2. The fight to stay on the lead lap, that's Denny Hamlin. The fight to stay in the lead, that is Kyle Busch. He is challenged once again by Brad Keselowski in the 2. Keselowski looked to the outside that time. Fight for 4th on the right side of the screen between Martin Truex Jr. and Chase Elliott. Here comes the 2, looking to the inside of the 18 now for the lead. And will the 5 of Casey Kane slow down the 18 enough? That time by. Keselowski was scored as the leader with 2 laps to go. Keselowski has made the pass and back out front. And into the curb, the 2 hits the curb. The 18 pressuring Keselowski. The 22 into the wall. Austin Dillon took the 22 into the wall. They stay going the same direction. Final lap of stage 2. Keselowski trying to sweep the first 2 stages in Martinsville. Through 3 and 4, Keselowski's going to do it. Keselowski wins stage 2.
And I know he didn't win it, but Denny Hamlin did a masterful job of staying in the lead lap. You never know when championship moments are made. Well, that move right there, that drive by Denny Hamlin to stay in the lead lap, that could be the difference between having a chance to win a championship and not.
He stayed on the lead lap, not in the top 10, but still very impressive.
Rick, if you've been coming to Martinsville since 1980, then you know the look of the green and white tow trucks here. Franklin's from down in South Boston. They work here, South Boston Speedway, Darlington. You know this look because Donnie Ellington, the owner, it was his father-in-law that started the business. They called him Chief. They've been coming here since 1980. And Jeff Burton, you're the one who reminded me what a great story is. Turns out these guys have pulled you off the wall a few times at South Boston, they told me, buddy.
It may have pulled me out of a ditch or two in Halifax County, Virginia as a young driver.
Oh, they work hard here, that's for sure. And once again, the field approaches the Geico restart zone here in Martinsville. Kyle Busch easily clearing Keselowski, and now here comes Martin Truex Jr. in the 78 working that inside line.
78 Martin Truex Jr., not known as a short track racer. His numbers are nowhere near as impressive as they are at the mile-and-a-half tracks, but done a nice job all day, just kind of hanging around that top 3, top 5, Rick.
Logano trying to work that outside line. And that's interesting to say here at Martinsville.
Yeah, it is.
Trying to work that outside line. We've seen it many times work today. Keselowski is making it work.
And how about the young drivers back there still running together? The 24, Chase Elliott, the 21, Ryan Blaney. They've been together all day long, but they had the kind of days that they need to have. Smooth, calm, uneventful days for these two drivers.
And again, into this final stage, 226 laps to go. They will have to come to pit road for fuel. Tires they'll be screaming for as well. That pit went to over 150 laps though, Steve.
Yeah, you can go 150 laps on fuel. We just saw about 121 lap green flag run, so we know the tires can make it that far, but as you mentioned, I'm not sure any drivers out there love the set of tires that were still in their race car, just worn out and very little grip.
How about Denny Hamlin? He's worked himself up into 10th position right now. Again, I don't want to overemphasize it, but that drive that Denny Hamlin had the penalty, had a long green flag run, had to start in the back of the pack, stayed in the lead lap. I know that wasn't a win, wasn't even stage points, but that was huge to stay in the lead lap.
We ride along with Kurt Busch, and once again we saw about 3 or 4 rows back, Kurt Busch, he got that accordion effect where it seemed like everybody was trying to go, and then he had to check up. Look, he runs into the back of Clint Boyer.
Nice job, though, to get on the brakes as much as he did. This would be a great shot of it right here. I mean, if he does hit him, it's very light contact. There was an opportunity there for some heavy damage.
And this was 2 laps later. There's some more contact, but this time it was with the side of the 48.
And you mentioned the 48, you know, running in the 11th position. I thought that Jimmy and Chad worked together very nicely between strategy and driving to get him up there at the end of stage 1. And we talked about the start of stage 2. They were all kind of matched on the same tires, and he just didn't really have much car to race with, now currently outside the top 10.
Chase Elliott's able to get by Truex Jr. And so now Chase Elliott up into the top 3 once again. That's where he finished in the spring race here. A very impressive run. A lot of people pointed their finger at the 24 saying this could be the track that he gets his first win. Kelly.
And Chase Elliott got a little bit of a pep talk during that last stage break. Take a listen to this.
Doing a really good job, Chase. Just work on your discipline a little bit. That dimer works nice when you get to... Yeah, it's hit or miss. It's kind of hard for me to do it. That's why I got away from it.
And Chase has been kind of hard on himself throughout this race, just really blaming himself, saying he hasn't been patient enough, and maybe that's what's brought on a couple of the handling issues that he's suffered. But as he said, he's made a couple of passes since this restart up into the top 3.
Think about the guy on top of the pit box for Chase Elliott in the 24, Alan Gustafson, 463 starts, 20 wins as a crew chief. Well, 2 of those 20 wins right here at Martinsville with Jeff Gordon, who, oh, by the way, understands how this track changes. He taught me a tremendous amount about how to crew chief here. I'm sure Alan Gustafson got that same book of knowledge. Can he apply that knowledge for his very young race car driver and work him through the right adjustments over the last 200 laps here?
And what we heard from this 2014 this entire week was that we're not very good at Martinsville. We don't run very well there. It's our weakest racetrack. And they ran great here in the spring, but they came in with, for some reason, very low expectations. But this racetrack, to me, is the kind of racetrack that Chase Elliott should be really good on. He races with his brain. He doesn't do silly things. He stays within himself. You have to manage 500 laps here. It's very difficult not to lose your temper, not to get in over your head. And Chase Elliott's that kind of race car driver.
As a driver, Jeff, we've passed, obviously, the halfway point. There's only 216, I say there's only 216 laps to go. As a driver, do you ever get behind the wheel and just think, okay, we have to be close to the end of this race, and then look up and see on the scoreboard, oh, there's still 215 laps to go?
Well, I think for a younger driver, I think that's the case. I think once you've got some races under your belt at Martinsville, you know the rhythm. You understand what you're getting into. When you sit in that car, the first thing that's on your brain is, okay, this is a marathon. This thing's going to last a long time. Think about it. How many times you're on the throttle, on the brake? It's just an all-day event, and you learn to just get into that mentality of it's going to take some patience.
Well, you mentioned patience. Really, this race has been a test of patience, and the drivers have done a nice job. We've only seen a couple accidents, a lot of give and take over that whole last second stage for the cars to go green. Because listen, it's not that people didn't make contact. We would look out the window and see some cars up the racetrack, but they actually checked up, let the car back in line. It didn't cause a yellow.
Marty.
Hey, Rick, Kyle Larson has been struggling. He is still back in the 21st position, that 42 car. And they said the car was just so tight that what he was doing inside the car with the track bar wouldn't help him at all. So they finally got the car freed up to the point to now where the track bar is finally starting to help Kyle Larson. So many drivers were saying they were free all afternoon long. Larson's been screaming tight, and the race car finally starting to come his way. But now he's back in 21st, as you can see, not on the lead lap, proving once again Martinsville not his favorite racetrack, but trying to get a little bit better here.
I think, Marty, the key is that, you know, you have a racetrack that you don't enjoy, you don't think you're good at it, you just gotta dig. You gotta find a way to be good at that racetrack, and that's what today is all about for this team. They're out of the playoffs. Find a way when you come back here next year, if you're in the playoff battle, how can you have a successful day?
So Kyle Busch continues to add to his laps led, over 148. Listen into the radio.
Tony, we got debris on the right front brake duct if we catch a lapper.
So that's how close the people are looking at these cars. He's got a little bit of paper or maybe some tape that's on that right, and it's gone now.
Yep.
Just as quickly as he got up to the back bumper of the 66 of Carl Long, it's gone.
And that's good work by the race team, because Jeff, as a driver, I'm not sure you would know until maybe it's too late and you've overheated the brake, damaged the fluid, damaged the rotor. So great job by the crew chief. That sounded like Adam Stevens to me, telling the spotter, hey, let the driver know we need to work on this. So small things over the course of the day. So you see it right there on the right side of the screen. Right here you see there's a piece of debris covering that right front brake duct. And man, Rick, it's like 50% covered. That's a big piece of debris. Rutledge just talked about the hot dog wrappers all day long. Well, one ended up on top on the front nose of the 18 car.
Well, and you can see how the brake ducts work. So there's openings in the front of the nose, and they lead to hoses, and those hoses lead to a brake duct actually on the brake rotor assembly. So that air goes into the brake ducts, it rolls through the rotor, and the fins in the rotor push it out through the middle of the rotor, therefore cooling the brakes.
And right there we took a hose away, which is basically what that big piece of debris did. It blocked the air from going into the brake duct, heating up the brakes.
So it was a good find there. You saw the paper blow off right there.
And when you hear about an aero push, you know, that's a great example. So if that wrapper blew off, why did it blow off? Because the air was actually pushing the other way. It wasn't pushing on the front of the race car. So a little bit of an example of aerodynamics.
Keselowski chasing after Kyle Busch. It's almost a second between 1 and 2. That's about the largest gap that we've seen all day long between 1 and 2 at this racetrack.
So the gap between 1 and 2 has spread out a little bit, but one gap on the racetrack that's actually closed in, and Jeff, you and I talk about this every week, sometimes the toughest battle on the racetrack is for that free pass position. And currently, Casey Kane in that green and white number 5 holds the position, and Daniel Suarez in that orange number 19, he wants the position. They're battling for 14th, which is the first car 1 lap down.
Yeah, that's a battle deep in the field. Well, another battle within the field, and we spent a lot of time talking about playoff teams, but Clint Bowyer, in the second half of this year, they have run so much better. He is having a solid day. Remember, early in the race, he was running very well, had a bad pit stop, went back into the mid-20s. He's clawed himself back up into 6th position. Nice day for Clint Bowyer and his team.
And Jeff, it's been the relaxed Clint Bowyer, relaxed enough to call play-by-play for the end of the last stage. Yeah, the 2, he really needs to win this race because he won't be as good at the next couple races. Crew chief agreeing, yeah, there may be a fight at the end of the day, haha, that kind of thing. So Clint Bowyer very relaxed and running well at Martinsville.
That's when Clint's his best, right? When Clint's having fun, joking around, messing around, that's Clint. I mean, he's a fierce competitor, but he's got to be in the position where he's having fun and enjoying himself.
Logano trying to hold off the 78 of Martin Truex Jr. Those two fighting for the 4th spot. Kyle Busch out front as we go NASCAR nonstop from Martinsville. Caution comes out for the 6th time at Martinsville. This time it's Kyle Larson. He was in 23rd position.
Looks like he can't turn left.
Yeah, you see right here, he's coming off from what I think is turn 2. He's underneath the 51 car. We've talked all day about how hard it is to get the pressure or the rear tires to hook up. You see he's in a big slide already. Continues to try to turn to stay off the 51 and basically spins himself out, really. You're going to see right here, it comes all the way around and makes pretty heavy contact. When you talk about Martinsville, that's pretty heavy contact with the inside wall.
And the right rear gets it as well.
Riding along, you listen to the throttle. Just trying to throttle up. Rear tires didn't hook up. He stayed in the throttle and spun it around.
So after an engine failure a week ago, now Kyle Larson heads to the ambulance. They'll take him to the infield care center. Looks like it'll be Casey Kane that will get the free pass.
And because of where this accident is, you see the pit road commitment line just in front of the accident. Pit road is still closed. So Casey Kane getting the free pass will put 14 cars on the lead lap, but I really think 32 laps on these tires, all the leaders I expect to see on pit road. What about all those cars? We have a long list of cars 1 lap down. Suarez, Newman, Jones, Earnhardt Jr., and the list goes on from there. This might be their opportunity, Jeff, stay on the racetrack and try to gain a lap back by getting the wave around. You know, you hate to continue to try to race for that free pass. That's only 1 car per yellow. At some point, you have to do something to try to change your day.
So, the record backing up to the 42. Not the way Kyle Larson wanted his day to end this week either. Getting ready for the restart here at Martinsville, but let's listen into the 2 radio from the previous restart.
They are really double screwing the restart up behind us as far as the timing when the 18's going.
Well, we've seen them. We've seen them stack up. We've seen contact between cars. If it continues, eventually someone's car is going to get damaged. You cannot keep running into each other without something bad happening.
Kyle Busch on the inside, Brad Keselowski on the outside. All 8 of the playoff drivers currently in the top 10.
And Rick, as we thought, we had a whole bunch of cars take the wave around. There's now 24 cars in the lead lap, up from 14 just before this yellow. So a big change on how the lead lap cars look and how many there are. If you have a problem, you're going to lose way more spots.
And again, we see the 2 and 22 side by side for position. The 22 has cleared the 2 now. Here comes Chase Elliott in the 24, working on the 2 for that 3rd spot.
I almost get the sense that as this race has moved on, on these last few restarts, has the outside been as good? I almost sense that it started to go away a little bit.
And you got the 77 getting spun around off from turn 4 in front of everyone.
Yeah, it bottles up there in turn 4. Eric Jones sideways. And left rear damage to the 77.
You see it started with he and Jamie McMurray got together, and then
Cole Witt, that's 72.
Just a bottleneck. I mean, it's nowhere to go.
Well, and a big break for all of these cars that not only missed the accident, but most of these cars stayed out, took the wave around, and now they'll be able to come to pit road, service their car, put some tires, some fuel. I mean, that changes the race for so many cars, as well as the 31, who he pitted, chose not to take the wave around. Well, he got the free pass.
A lot of damage to the left rear quarter panel, which has the opening for fuel, which will be difficult for the 77 team. 7th caution has come out at Martinsville. Eric Jones was sideways in turn 4. Kyle Busch still out front. Today's aerial coverage provided by our partners at Smithfield Foods. You can see the long shadows now across the paperclip. On Wednesday, make sure to tune in to NASCAR Radio Channel 90 for the morning drive at 9 a.m. Chris Devoto will join the crew from NBC Sports on Sirius XM. I mentioned the long shadows. It's starting to get a little bit darker here at Martinsville, and about a half an hour ago, the lights were turned on. This is the first time that there will be lights for a cup race at Martinsville. Green flag back in the air. Joey Logano this time fighting on the outside to get by that 18 for the lead, but once again, Kyle Busch is able to clear him. And now here comes the 24, fighting for the 2nd spot on the inside of the track. Chase Elliott now up to 2nd. Steve, we mentioned the fuel window. Over 150 laps, but probably under 160 laps. Around there, there's still 177 to go. They're still going to have to come to pit road at least one more time.
Yeah, I don't think this is the type of track that you're going to want to start to save fuel. It's going to all be about trying to get your car handling right on the next pit stop, as we see Chase Elliott makes a move to the inside of the 18 for the lead.
Looking for the top spot. Chase Elliott even goes up the racetrack a bit. The 18 moves out, trying to make sure there isn't any contact.
I'm not sure if he moved out or got moved out, but
I think it was the latter.
Chase Elliott, he'll lead that lap, and he's in front of the 18.
Now all of a sudden that bottom lane has turned into the preferred lane.
A little bumping going on now between the 18 and 22. Fighting for that 2nd spot. 12 drivers have gotten their first career win right here, but it hadn't happened since 2001 and Ricky Craven. Chase Elliott is the only playoff driver without a career win.
I said the inside lane was the preferred lane, with Joey Logano just past Kyle Busch using that outside. I think Kyle Busch's car has gotten away from him a little bit. He does not look as good as he did the run before.
We talked about this, Rick. The track will change. Well, now it's starting to shift. You just said the lights are coming on. The sun, the angle of the sun is changing. The color of the concrete is changing just because of the tires that have been running on it. So now the 18 has fallen back. The 24, who hasn't been a bad car inside the top 5, but now he's moved forward.
And Steve, we mentioned a moment ago too, Kyle said on the radio after the end of that last run, I didn't do a good job of keeping up with the racetrack as it changed. So yes, track is changing as Brad Keselowski completes that pass. So as we're winding down here in the final stage of this race, We have 171 to go, Steve. 3 sets of tires for all these leaders, so that's getting a little dicey as well. You're going to have to manage that as a crew chief. Make sure you manage when you take on those tires, those final 3 sets.
Yeah, and that can be very, very easy. If we have
a lot of green,
1 or 2 yellows,
yeah.
it can be very, very difficult if we have a rash of yellows.
Elliott out front, Logano running second. Keselowski, Kyle Busch, Truex Jr. in the top 5. Then it's Blaney, Harvick, Boyer, Kurt Busch, and Johnson in the top 10. Kenseth is 11th. Denny Hamlin back to 12. Austin Dillon, Casey Kane, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. all in the top 15. Blaney looked strong early in this race, was aggressive, but now running back in the 6th spot.
So now with the track changing, who's been able to keep up with it, and also who started the day with the setup that the car may be better later than it was earlier. We see the 18 certainly appears to be headed in the wrong direction. The guys behind him running him down, the guys in front of him have driven away from him, but whose car was really good in practice yesterday? Whose car does this track condition suit?
Well, this isn't a new look for Martinsville. I mean, 6 of the last 8 winners, Rick, have led less than 100 laps. And I purely think that is because of this phenomenon we're seeing here, that the track goes through these major, major shifts. And go back to what Brad Keselowski said before the start of the day about the pit cycle. Which pit cycle you're on. You see Kevin Harvick with a pretty aggressive move underneath the 21. I like it. It's time to try to get to the front.
Yeah, it looked like Blaney didn't. He was upset about something. He turned left down the straightaway. You see the side of Blaney's car all torn up.
Remember that word patience that we heard earlier in this race?
Yeah, that's the first half. The second half, those don't exist.
Well, there's the bumper. We just saw it put to the 21.
And you got to remember, if you're Ryan Blaney, what's the goal? You're running 6th, right? You're running 6th. You're having a good, solid day on a track where you have not had a solid day. Finish this thing off. It's a lot of racing left to go. I know his tempers are tough, but you just got to collect your thoughts and remember the big picture.
Keselowski took the spot away from Logano, moves up to 2nd. On the right was where we saw the bumping and banging from the 4 of Harvick. And once again, he looks like he's just going to continue to let Ryan Blaney know, hey, by the way, I'm back here.
My quick count says 4 for 4. Let's see if we can go 5 for 5 in this corner. I don't think that was
quite there.
Not quite. So 4 for 4 bumper contact and just inches away here on this set. I think we're going to see something right here, though.
Goes to the inside. Can he? Oh, and he does. He hits the left rear quarter panel as they came out of the turn.
And that's not intentional. When you're coming off the corner, you're trying to get the throttle laid down. You're trying to get those rear tires hooked up. That's not Harvick intentionally getting into the side of the 21. That's just racing at Martinsville. And Blaney started to use this outside. He's intentionally got his car there. So after this restart has gone for a little while, the cars have gotten going, maybe this outside's going to start to work again.
We've continued to compare Chase Elliott to his dad. He's a Hall of Famer, Bill Elliott. He has 44 career wins, but not one of them has ever come at Martinsville. Right now, it's Chase Elliott out front as we go NASCAR nonstop. You just saw the contact in NASCAR nonstop. The 4 got into the side of the 21, slid him a little bit sideways, and then completed the pass. So the 4 of Kevin Harvick has moved ahead of Ryan Blaney, and while that move took place, Clint Boyer took advantage of it and went with him. Listening to Harvick's radio.
I was about to tell you, just tell him that the right front fender is really, really close to the tire now. Probably can't take another hit next time.
So we heard that was Rodney Childers saying the right front fender might be a little bit close to the tire. Like, don't give us tire rub. That's one thing we don't want to end up having right now.
That was before he moved him over and made the pass, Rick, by the way.
Well, there you go.
Steve, you said it forever. Drivers don't listen. Proof again.
Well, it looks like he knows what he's talking about or knows what he's doing, because I don't see any smoke off the right front.
No, but
motor blowing a little bit.
There's definitely some damage to that right front fender.
Yeah, you know, as this day goes longer, you're going to start seeing the rotors glow more and more. We see it at night races, how brightly they glow. Well, see right here, enter in turn 1, look inside the wheel. It's the brake rotor glowing. There's nothing unusual about that.
A lot of brakes here at Martinsville. The gap between 1 and 2 right now, Elliott has about a 0.2 of a second lead over Keselowski, and that's what 0.2 of a second looked like at Martinsville.
Brad's running down from about a 1.5 seconds behind. So Brad is clearly faster right now.
So again, we'll throw out the word patience. Will we see any patience from Brad Keselowski as he tries to get by the 24?
Well, I think it's even bigger than, hey, let's try to go win Martinsville. This is the first golden ticket to Miami. And both Chase Elliott, who wants to get his first career win, and Brad Keselowski, the defending winner, he won this race here in the spring. They both know that a win here takes the pressure off at Texas and Phoenix. It doesn't matter, mechanical, bad luck, whatever. They're in Miami with a chance to win a championship.
Playoff drivers, 8 of them, all with an opportunity still at the title. They set their goals at the beginning of the season, and that trophy at the end of the season was the #1 goal, especially for these 8 drivers that are still fighting for it. Kelly?
Yeah, Chase Elliott still looking for his first win, but it was when he got passed for the lead at Dover a few weeks ago that his crew chief Alan Gustin said got him a little bit ticked off, and now the mild-mannered driver a little bit edgier. He says he's definitely been more aggressive since then, something he really likes to see out of the young Chase Elliott. Marty?
Kelly, we've talked about the must-win for Brad Keselowski, now stalking Chase Elliott for the lead late here at Martinsville. This is the same car that Brad won with here in the spring, and that car has not been on the racetrack since then. Paul Wolf built this car for Martinsville. It's sitting in the corner of the shop at Team Penske and hasn't run since then. He wanted a little bit more of that last adjustment on this stop to give him more forward bite from the center of the corner off, especially late in the run. We'll see if that pays off for Brad Keselowski and gets him back to the lead.
And we've seen this all day. There's been a few instances where 1 and 2 weren't right next to each other, but for the most part, they've been battling the entire day around this racetrack. It's been different players. It's been Kyle Busch. It's been Brad Keselowski. Different drivers have been up front. Joey Logano. Now it's Chase Elliott trying to hold off Brad Keselowski, but for the most part, we've always seen Brad Keselowski fighting toward the end of a stage or a long run to get up front and get the lead. And once again, it seems like the long run car of Keselowski has been very competitive once they get 50, 60, 70 laps into a run.
Yeah, the team that I'm a little surprised about is the 48 of Jimmy Johnson. You can see he's running 13th with a lot of pressure from Dale Earnhardt Jr. to try to take that spot. And, you know, they used really good strategy early in the race to have a good finish in the first stage, but they have not had the pace that you've come to expect from a 9-time winner at Martinsville.
Caution has come out. The 38 involved. Could be more, as that's in turn 2. Also the 34. So Landon Castle and David Reagan in turn 2 bring out the 8th caution of the day. David Reagan in the 38 was in position to get the free pass, but he had to stop because of the accident. I don't know if he'll still get it.
Well, the 13 and the 38 got together, and the 34 was the victim of their contact. Landon Castle really, he was completely out of the way and got spun around because of the contact of the other 2 cars.
Crew chief back on pit road.
Without a doubt. 40 laps on this green flag run. Tires have definitely been worth some speed. We saw earlier when Jimmy had just a little bit fresher tires. Jimmy Johnson I'm talking about, he was able to drive up and pass cars. So I think with 40 laps in this set, you have to come get tires. But these decisions become more difficult with 24 cars on the lead lap. You know, if the field just splits, you're going to give up a ton of track position. So sometimes the right call mathematically or the right call for your car becomes the wrong call just because of what everybody else does. And that's going to become more and more difficult as we get into the last 100 laps of this race.
138 laps remain here at Martinsville. Sunday nights, well, is football night. Antonio Brown and the Steelers are going to visit the Motor City to face Matthew Stafford and the Lions. Mike Tirico and Dan Patrick host Football Night in America. That's tonight, 7 Eastern, only on NBC.
You need a good pit stop, Rick, but maybe even more important than that, you need to get the right adjustment.
Kelly.
And we'll see Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney come to pit road first. Ryan Blaney said, it feels like I've run about 100 miles on my right rear tire. I don't know what it's doing. So they're going to make an air pressure adjustment. They also got to work on a little bit of fender damage there on that 21 car. As for Chase Elliott, well, he said that his 24 car fired off a little bit better towards the end. He was losing a little bit of drive off. 4 tires and fuel, Marty.
Kelly, you've talked about how strong the 18 team has been on pit road all day long, collectively gaining Kyle Busch 9 spots. We'll see if they can gain a little bit more here. He said it's way too tight. Doesn't matter what I do, I can't make the car any better. Just 2 sets of tires left for all these lead cars with about 130 to go when they get to the green. Brad Keselowski, though, will win the race off pit road. He said it was a little bit freer, but don't make any adjustments to it, Rick.
Amazingly, Brad Keselowski has beat Kyle Busch off of pit road, and so it's Keselowski now with the upper hand for the next restart. NASCAR on NBCSN is brought to you by Liberty Mutual Insurance, helping drivers worry less on the track and on the road. It is a cold one up there on top of the spotter stand, but we'd like to congratulate Lewis Hamilton. He was able to clinch the F1 championship today, becoming just a 4-time champ. That's the first time that Great Britain has ever had a 4-time champ in F1. It's tied for 3rd all time. As we get ready for the restart, Lewis Hamilton was actually with Jeff Gordon a couple years back at the final race in Homestead.
One car you don't see up towards the front, Kevin Harvick in this 4 car is going to restart all the way back in the 8th row in the 16th position. Had a very slow 18-second pit stop, had some trouble on an air hose, so a lot of spots lost by Kevin Harvick.
Truex Jr. back up into the hunt as he runs second behind Keselowski.
He mentioned spots lost with a 24 car. And they lost two spots on pit road, came in with the lead and came out 3rd. So now on this restart, he's falling back to 4th. So what a quick change of events, go from leading the race to running 4th in a few minutes. And how about Denny Hamlin? How about that drive? Now racing Boyer for 5th.
Kelly.
If 5 Martinsville wins for Denny Hamlin, who was asked about his success, he believes that there's just one way around this track to be successful. The only problem is that several guys now have figured out what that one way is for Denny. Hey, one other quick note, you saw that shot of the spotters. Well, his spotter, Chris Lambert, celebrating his 43rd birthday today. He would like nothing better than a grandfather clock, and crew chief Mike Wheeler promised to buy him one for his birthday should they get to victory lane.
That's a pretty impressive birthday gift if he's able to finish that out. It'd be the 6th time that Denny Hamlin would be able to win here at Martinsville, as we see the 24 now sliding underneath the 18. That's for that 3rd spot.
This 18 just does not have the race car that he had earlier in this race. This is not making speed to the center of the corner.
But the 24 again looks impressive. Here comes Joey Logano. He looks to the inside of Denny Hamlin. $127 laps to go.
Look how clean Denny Hamlin's car is after starting in the back of this pack, working his way up. Doesn't appear to have very much damage whatsoever. Bit of rub on the left rear quarter panel. Other than that, very clean.
Keselowski, who's out front, looking to sweep the races here in 2017. It was his first win back in April here at Martinsville. His first grandfather clock, looking to add to that today.
Well, and the 3 other drivers that have had good recoveries right here behind. We see Matt Kenseth in the 20, Dale Jr. in the 88, Daniel Suarez in 19 is currently in the 10th position. Right behind him, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in 11th. So here we are, riding on board with Dale Earnhardt Jr., who has battled his way into the top 10 in the 9th position.
Chase Elliott, you saw he got back by the 78 of Martin Truex Jr. He's been the fastest race car Chase Elliott has for the last 3 or 4 laps. He ran these guys down from several car lengths back, and now he has Brad Keselowski in his eyesight right there.
Marty.
A lot of discussion on the 18 radio, Rick. As soon as Chase Elliott went by Kyle Busch a moment ago, he said something's wrong with the right front, almost like there's a tire rub. You see the battle between Denny Hamlin and Joey Logano, but for the 18 of Kyle Busch, he thinks something might be going on with that right front. They don't think it's necessarily a rub on the tire, could be a splitter issue, but right front not feeling right for that 18.
So it seems like the 24 definitely has the fastest car, but with 123 to go, does he need to be patient and take care of his tires in case this run goes all the way to the finish, Jeff? Or do you just go up there and try to take the lead and worry about it at that point?
Well, the problem is, if I'm driving the race car, I just came on pit road and I lost spots. So I need to go and get the lead back. I need to put as many people between me. You know, I need to get them behind me because my pit crew just showed me, hey, I'm not as good as they are. So I need to push hard to get this spot.
One of the trends we've already seen today out of the 2 is Brad Keselowski's car gets better as the run gets longer. So if he can't get by him here in the next 15 to 20 laps, the 2 has shown that he will get better as this run gets longer and longer.
At 24, though, it just you talked about that middle of the corner or the 2/3 mark. I mean, look at the 24, how well it cuts, gets to the bottom of the, and that gives him a straighter exit. You know what I'm saying, Jeff? Is the middle of the corner seems to be more successful for Chase Elliott, so that makes the exit just easier for him to accomplish right here. He accelerates. He's a half a groove below the 2 car, accelerating straight off the corner.
Yeah, the quicker the car points and changes directions, the sooner you can go to the throttle. It's just that simple. It's if your car's aimed to the bottom of the racetrack, right there, it allows you to go to the throttle. Of course, the car is pointed already down the straightaway. If your car is pointed the wrong direction, not turning, all you can do is wait on the throttle.
24's caught him as we look at the playoff storylines. 5 playoff drivers currently in the top 7. Keselowski swept both stage 1 and stage 2, and right now out in front of the field. Jimmy Johnson currently 14th after starting at the very back of the field because of a spin in qualifying earlier today.
You saw Chase Elliott make a dive underneath the 2 car, and Keselowski just didn't give you much room. Chase bounced the left front off the curb, touched the 2 just a little bit. Really, that's what your job is. If you're Brad Keselowski, use that curb. That curb is just like there's a wall there. Look right here. You see it's a little bit of an opening there. Chase Elliott saw him coming down. He actually almost stopped the left front. You can see how hard he was on the brake and, you know, just trying to avoid that contact. Now with 10 to go, maybe that brake doesn't get applied like that.
Totally different. Maybe the gas was applied at 10 to go. Let's listen in to Kyle Busch's radio.
Every time I freaking get close to somebody, it just slides the back out. It's got to be downforce related.
So is he saying that there's an aerodynamic situation here? Look at this for the lead. Here comes Chase Elliott. Elliott takes it away from Keselowski. So once again, Chase Elliott.
Take care of it now, guys. That's close.
The 21-year-old from Dawsonville, Georgia, out in front at Martinsville. And we've seen this story play out so many times. He has 6 second-place finishes. He has come so close to getting his first win. When will it come? Could it be here? Steve, I know before the day even started, you made the comment, I think Chase Elliott has a great chance of getting his first win today.
This car number in Martinsville, it just seems to always run good. I think Jeff Gordon basically set the standard as the driver that made this number so famous. You see already 6 runner-up finishes without a win. He doesn't want to continue on that list. So, I mean, this number has 9 wins here. Chase Elliott would love to make it 10 with, and think he's not going to drive this car number next year, so he would love to get a win in that iconic 24 before moving back to the number 9.
And the question now, you asked me a little bit ago, Steve, does a 24 save tires? Does he try to slow down a little bit? You can see the 18 has gotten by the 78. Well, now, if the 2 will allow you, yes, now's the time. Now don't run 100%, run 97%, but I'm not so sure Brad Keselowski is going to allow the 24. You mentioned it, the 2 car looked like he was good on long run, so if Brad feels like he's better than Chase on a long run, he's going to keep that pressure on. He's going to run that 24 as hard as he can if he thinks he has an advantage on old tires.
Chase Elliott also looking to give Hendrick Motorsports their 250th win. The young man at the racetrack, well, he's been to victory lane many times with his Hall of Fame dad, Bill Elliott, but still looking for his first win. Could it come here at Martinsville? We're going NASCAR nonstop. Chase Elliott leads the Monster Energy Cup Series first day to 500 from Martinsville Speedway. And the gap stays the same between the 24 and the 2, but the 48 continues to go the wrong direction. He's currently running 18th.
Yeah, wow. Trevor Bayne in the 48 battling and make contact.
Still there, door, quarter, inside.
That's
inside
heavy
again.
contact.
Dave.
Jimmy's first question was, did I hit him or did he hit me? And they kind of said, well, he hit you. That's trying to help your driver out a little bit. But that car right now, Jimmy's rated it and said the right front just will not turn at all, and I've lost drive off. So based on the car wasn't bad earlier, now I think it's quite a bit worse.
I want to take a look at the Ram Guts and Glory.
Well, I'm going to ask, if the caution comes out, do you pit again? Do you pit, give that track position to get new tires, or do you stay out and then restarts? We always know restarts are so important. Who is going to get the good restart when it counts?
Yeah, we knew the track was going to change. Well, now the sun is setting. Is it going to change again? So if you do pit, what adjustments do you give your driver? Inside 100 to go, what do you need for a little bit shorter run? Is this something you need different to try to go win this race?
So that first point there, you mentioned, do you pit? With just under 100 laps to go, you've got a fresh set of Goodyear tires on pit road. You have to come get those, don't you?
Absolutely. I think there's no doubt these Goodyear tires are very good for racing and good for putting rubber on the racetrack. But like a good tire does, it slows down over the run. So you're going to want fresh rubber if the caution comes out.
Let's go through the field, brought to you by Hardee's.
And Rick, will start with Chase Elliott there at the front of the field, who's approaching 60 laps led in this race. But the team's really downplayed their abilities here this weekend. When I talked to crew chief Alan Gustafson, though, he said, I don't really think that Chase has struggled at Martinsville any more than any other young driver. It's just that so many comparisons are being made to Jeff Gordon, who, of course, raced his car ahead of him and had so much success. Chase Elliott looking for his first career win. No more fitting place than here at Martinsville, Marty.
Kelly, now under 100 to go here at Martinsville, and Brad Keselowski has obviously won a championship before, but since NASCAR changed the format to an elimination format, he has never made the championship four. If he can get by Chase Elliott, he would give himself a ticket to Miami. No, nothing on the radio so far from Brad during this run. Kyle Busch is sitting back there in third. He's led the most laps today, but you heard a moment ago, when he gets behind someone, just slides the rear into the car for the 18. He won Saturday as an owner. He would love to win Sunday as a driver. What a great race for Martin Truex Jr. It's been a fantastic season for the 78, but we talked about his struggles on the short track. He's never won on a short track today. Solidly in the top 5 all day long. An impressive run for that 78, Dave.
Good looking top 5 for Clint Boyer too, Marty. And I talked to Mike Buggeravich, his crew chief, this morning about his skills here. He said taking care of the car is among his best. He's done that all day, Marty.
Dave, of course, Joey Logano would love to get the win this afternoon at Martinsville, but he would love a top 5 as well. Only 4 of those since his win at Richmond earlier this year. He's led 59 laps here this afternoon, struggling with a race car that's a little bit too tight, Kelly.
Earlier this weekend, Denny Hamlin was asked if he had kind of crunched the numbers to see what it would take to advance to the next round. He said, yeah, he had. He thinks it's somewhere in 40-plus points per race. But he also said, look, last year I averaged a 6th place finish, and that round, and that wasn't good enough. He's running 7th now, Marty.
Right behind him, 2 other Joe Gibbs Racing drivers. Matt Kenseth impressively in 8th. He's been in the top 10 all day long after being eliminated from the playoffs last week at Kansas. But how about his young teammate Daniel Suarez in 9th? He took the wave around earlier, took on a fresh set of Goodyear tires. He's been able to drive his way up into the top 10. This young man just keeps getting better every week, Kelly.
Well, I asked crew chief Jeremy Bullins on the 21 car if he had done the math for how they could advance on points. He said, no, absolutely not. I think it's a distraction and a waste of time. We all know the scenario. The scenario for him right now is that if Chase Elliott wins, it becomes that much more difficult for this 21 car to advance on points, Dave.
So with all the contact Kevin Harvick had with the 21, there's a little bit more. He wanted to spend no time on the right front tire because fender because he didn't smell any tire rub. Instead, the problem they had did involve a hose, but it was the jackman getting his foot caught in when he came around the car. That's why there was a slow pit stop. Kevin now working his way back up toward the top 10. Speaking of top 10s, how about Ricky Stenhouse Jr. trying to get another one? He had one here in the spring, and he's working his way toward that as well. And Dale Earnhardt Jr. earlier today took the wave around. The caution came out at the right time. He was able to get the car around, get on the same tire strategy with everybody else, and that helmet cam has been doing better lately. Rick?
Dale Earnhardt Jr. with the gray ghost paint scheme, running inside the top 15, currently 13th. 86 laps to go as we ride along and get a look out the windshield of the 88, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. making his final start here at Martinsville. Surprisingly, the 4 Hendrick Motorsports cars led by Chase Elliott, who is leading this race. Then you have to go all the way down. Casey Kane is right in front of Jimmy Johnson. But surprisingly, of those 4 cars, Dale Earnhardt Jr., as I mentioned, is 13th. But Jimmy Johnson, we mentioned, needed to have a great showing here at this racetrack. Stage 1 looked very good, and then from that point forward, he's fallen back to where he's the worst of the 4 Hendrick Motorsports cars.
Without a doubt, not the day the 48 of Jimmy Johnson is looking for. I mean, there's still 83 to go, so you know the points haven't been awarded yet. If they finish this race, maybe they can do something to try to recover, but man, we haven't seen anything out of this race car that's going to tell us it can drive to the front.
The gap between 1 and 2 now a second between Chase Elliott and Brad Keselowski. 82 to go. And at what point does Chase Elliott maybe learn I need to save my equipment or save my tires for a late run? He's got a second gap between himself and second. So at some point in time, does a spotter or a crew chief say, hey, back off a little bit?
Well, remember, this was a point of conversation at Dover where we saw this car right here, the 18 of Kyle Busch, close up, what was it, 4 or 5 seconds in the last 20 laps. And when I went back and watched that, it just seemed to me that Chase Elliott should have searched around before Kyle Busch got there. But after that race, I mentioned, very important for Alan Gustafson and Chase Elliott to sit down, and they can decide what they should have done differently. Not for me to decide, and this is that point. Now we're getting into that closing 80 laps of the race, a 1-second lead. What information do those two feel they have to exchange to give Chase Elliott the best ability to keep this lead?
Still looking for that first win. Battle for second heating up between Brad Keselowski and Kyle Busch. Only 79 to go at Martinsville as we go NASCAR nonstop. You're watching Monster Energy Cup Series racing from Martinsville Speedway. Only 71 laps to go. Chase Elliott out front has a 1.2-second lead over Brad Keselowski. Kevin Harvick running in the 12th spot.
See, the 17's gotten in front of the 4 car. Well, here's how it happened. The 4 getting to the back of the 21. We've seen these two race.
Again.
Yeah, the 21 just, we saw that earlier with somebody else, just kind of brake checked. The 17 took advantage of it.
17 was able to get by the 4 and put a little bit of a buffer between the two that have banged and beat against each other the whole time. Look at the playoff leaderboard on the left side of the screen and the points. Because Chase Elliott is up front, you see him at the top of the chart as the race leader, but then look at the points difference.
Yeah, the 24 basically is one of those cars that should be right down around the bubble on total points earned, but because the win is the automatic berth into Miami, that moves him to the top, and because of that, a big gap between Brad Keselowski and Kevin Harvick. So this win not only would be huge for Chase Elliott, first ever win, guaranteed spot in Miami, but you see what type of complexion it would leave for the next 2 races to try to make it to Miami in that championship run.
In order for this win to happen, assuming we don't get another caution, the lap traffic is going to play a huge factor right ahead of Chase Elliott is a long line of lap cars, or cars that are trying to stay an elite lap route.
Right. You've been coming here for years and years and years. Do you think we can complete 66 laps without another caution?
Well, I see lights on. I've never seen that at Martinsville before. And I actually lost a race here once. Actually, Steve was working with Jeff Gordon, and I was driving to 99, and Jeff and I had a great battle. And we were racing each other for forever. It was a huge run, and we weren't paying attention to John Andretti. He snuck by us and got the win. So I've seen this race end on a long run.
But here's the challenge now for the leader of Chase Elliott. As he catches cars like Ryan Newman, who is trying to keep from going 2 laps down. He's going to put up a heck of a battle. Interesting enough, the guy he was trying to pass at Dover when he had this lead. We'll see what kind of move he makes on the 31 here. But as he catches these cars and tries to lap them, they are not going to give it up very easily, and that's going to cost him time. So you see instantly a bumper put to the back of the 31.
Well, Chase Elliott a few laps ago was 1.2 seconds ahead of Brad Keselowski. So you know what this is causing. See that 2 car sneaking back up in the picture.
Yep. The gap between 1 and 2 is beginning to close again.
You see Chase starting to look on the outside.
Ironically, do you remember the last time the 24 was in victory lane here at Martinsville and how dark it was?
They needed lights that day, but they didn't have them.
Right. That was back in 2015 when Jeff Gordon was able to win, and he got his spot in the championship 4. Marty.
Rick, you got to wonder if that 2 of Brad Keselowski maybe saved something in a middle part of this run, because it kind of fell back from the 24 of Chase Elliott. Also, Joey Meyer made a good point that the rotors on the 24 look pretty red right now, meaning they're glowing pretty big. So lap traffic and maybe a little savvy behind the wheel of that 2 car maybe could play to his advantage. Who knows?
And now patience are going to come into play for the 24 of Chase Elliott. So much congestion now with this lap traffic that he's trying to get around. He looked to the outside of the 10 of Danica Patrick. As you mentioned, nobody wants to give up a spot, especially those that are running on the lead lap.
See Danica protecting the bottom. She turned left to actually block the 24. That's telling Chase Elliott, I might have to go around her on the outside, but he can't afford to do that with the 2 car right behind him.
Yeah, the 2 has now got to the back bumper of the 24, so this is the race lead. And 3 wide, and Chase Elliott on the bottom of 3 wide. Somebody's going to have to give. Danica Patrick once again dives down to the curb, making sure to shut the door on that 24's advancement. And now he gets the bumper on the inside of the 10. Will he be able to complete the pass as he goes to the gas? He cannot keep it going, and is going to lose a little bit of ground to the 31. So Chase Elliott in the 24 with 58 laps to go, searching for his first win. Brad Keselowski, the veteran, a champion already, is trying to pounce whenever the door opens up.
And you mentioned it earlier, 1.2 second lead evaporated not only to the 2 of Brad Keselowski, but right behind him, the 18 of Kyle Busch.
This traffic wreaking havoc on the 24 of Chase Elliott. Now, this time Danica runs that second line, and Chase not able to take advantage of it again. But this time the 31 is the gap between. Oh, and a little bit of a bobble there by the 24.
Chase got way loose on corner entry. He had to chase it up the racetrack. That opened the door for the 2 of Keselowski, and Brad drove it in there, and it made a little bit of contact, but it all started because Chase got loose on corner entry. And that is something I don't like to see, Steve. Late on a run, old tires, hot brakes, when that back of that car starts coming around on you, that's not going to get better. Now he has a tire rub.
We got smoke coming out of the back of the 24. That tire rub, you see the left rear fender. And that starts to rub.
Oh, now what do you do?
Got the left rear tire rub here. Yeah, I'm watching it. So we'll clear up.
It's not getting better.
How damaging could that be, Steve? If it's on the sidewall, worse?
Well, you start to see the sidewall. Looks like it's starting to get shiny, which would be the concern. That on the sidewall isn't a problem. If it's up near the tread, right when the sidewall meets the tread, that's the absolute thinnest part of the tire. It won't last there very long. As it continues to smoke, tells me it's continuing to wear and rub, and perhaps
she's going to clear it up a little bit.
you heard crew chief Alan Gustafson wisely saying, hey, move that track bar. The angle of the track bar will move that rear end housing to the right, away from that quarter panel a little bit. Hey, but unfortunately, that's going to hurt whichever direction you go. Obviously, Chase had it where he wanted it, so it's going to hurt the handling of this 24 car.
Yeah, so what started all of this, see Chase Elliott, he's trying to push to get by the 10 car, drives in the corner, and right now he gets very loose. That tells me there's a little bit of rear wheel hop for it to get that loose that soon. And my concern, see right there, my concern is that that won't get better. Then the 2 car gets in the side of the 24. 24 just slowed so far, but slowed down so much because he just had to regain control.
And that's what a driver wants to see, right, Jeff? Brad Keselowski now saw a weakness. I need to put the pressure on, because if I can get him to wheel hop one more time, maybe I can be there to capitalize.
So it took him quite a few laps, but the 24 of Chase Elliott has been able to clear the 10. Now sets his sights on the 5 of Casey Kane. Will a teammate make it a little easier for him, or is Casey Kane going to fight for this spot? And that question is answered as he goes up to that second groove.
Yeah, Casey Kane did, but what's Jimmy Johnson going to do? Jimmy Johnson's still in the playoff picture as well. Casey Kane can be a nice teammate, but Jeff, I don't see how Jimmy Johnson possibly can pull over at this point.
I don't either, but I'm still concerned about this tire rub. I'm still seeing smoke off that left rear of the 24 car.
Under 50 laps to go.
It's gotten better, but you still see a little bit of smoke.
Coming up on Reed Sorensen in that 15, he'll go by him. But as you mentioned, now Jimmy Johnson on the lead lap and in the playoffs.
See right there?
Yeah,
still right in the middle of the corner. Jimmy Johnson just no fight whatsoever. See, that's still smoking. That just concerns me, Steve. At some point, that tire cannot continue to take that.
Well, currently 85 laps in this green flag run. The longest run today was 122 laps, and who, by the way, benefited? The 2 of Brad Keselowski. Remember, he passed Kyle Busch in the closing laps of that stage. So, as you mentioned, Rick, with 47 to go, if this runs green, this will be the longest green flag run today. You have to ask yourself, does that favor the 2? Will his car continue to get better? Although Chase now has pulled up not only a little gap on Brad Keselowski, but now Brad has pressure from the 18 of Kyle Busch.
Will the tire hold out? That will be the big question for the 24 right now if a caution doesn't come out. Marty?
And Rick, just think about who's in front of Brad Keselowski. Casey Kane, Jimmy Johnson, teammates of Chase Elliott. I think they're going to make it hard on him. Here goes Kyle Busch looking for second. He said a moment ago, this is all I've got. Loose on entry, loose on exit. But it looks like he's going to get second here from Keselowski, Rick.
A little bit of contact there as they went through the turn. Yeah, Racing Nice right now is out the window. They're going for spots. And these 2 are going to go door to door once again as they dive into the turn.
2 is able to continue to hang on to that outside. Eventually you'll see the 18 car not be on the bottom of the racetrack in the middle of the corner. He'll just run Keselowski out of the line and take that spot.
Well, Chase Elliott is loving to hear this. I'm sure he's probably not looking in his mirror that much, but he is just gapping himself now. 1.6 seconds, and we have a yellow on the racetrack.
Caution has come out. The 66 of Carl Long up in turn 2. 43 laps to go. Crew chief?
Oh, you pit. There's no doubt. You must have new tires.
Everybody on the lead lap?
No. Yes, everyone on the lead lap. There's 16 cars. Everybody will come to pit road. But remember, last time, the 24 lost 2 spots. The 18 of Kyle Busch currently in second. Their pit crew has been outstanding today. Remember the decision Joe Gibbs Racing made at the beginning of the playoffs. Very controversial. We're going to swap pit crews. Take the 19 pit crew, give them to Kyle Busch. A little bit of a rocky start, but they stuck with him, they supported him, and they have been outstanding today. This is the moment that could justify that entire decision. Give Kyle Busch the lead, give him the golden ticket to Miami. That decision weeks ago could pay off today.
Does the 24 take extra time to pull the left rear quarter panel out? Or do they feel like it's clearest enough? You see Carl Long around as he came in the screen, but that's a question I don't know how to answer. I don't know what to do in that situation. Jimmy Johnson, by the way, got the free pass, but hard impact for Carl Long.
Carl Long bringing out this caution for the 9th time. Kelly.
And it sounds like the 24 crew for Chase Elliott will take a brief moment to try to pull out that left rear fender damage. Other than that, Chase Elliott said that he thinks the car is pretty good from what he can tell. He was pretty quiet during that battle with Brad Keselowski. 4 Goodyear tires, Sunoco fuel. Marty?
Kyle Busch and his team have done it all day long. Steve mentioned it a moment ago as he comes to a stop in his stall. He said, it's Martinsville, man. I need it to turn better. I need more forward bite off of the corner. You see the wedge adjustment trying to tighten up that car for Brad Keselowski. He said his car just a bit free. Going to be an air pressure adjustment. We'll see who wins the race off of pit road here. Everybody with 4 fresh Goodyear tires and maybe the last stop of the day, guys.
A long stop for the 18 has lost him a few positions. We'll see. There was a race off of pit road there. Chase Elliott and Brad Keselowski. You got to find out, was there speeding?
We're waiting to see, but that 18 car been great all day. The last stop of the day, lose 2 spots.
Under 38 laps remain in the Monster Energy Cup Series first day to 500 from Martinsville Speedway. Under the lights for the first time in the Monster Energy Cup Series at this racetrack.
Check out the leadership on the 24 car. They knew they had a tire rub. They felt like they needed to take care of it. So the rule is you can only have so many men on the wall. So watch what they did. The dump can, the fuel can man, he goes over first, pulls on the left rear quarter panel. Then he turns around, gets the fuel, fuels the car. Great call by the 2014.
Look at how close it was. Keselowski about a foot behind Chase Elliott when they went across the line.
Yeah, they've excited Alan Gustafson, but now lane choice was a big conversation up here. The 24 has chosen the bottom, Rick.
And the history of restarts for the 24. This one's a great one. Chase Elliott has been strong on the short runs here at Martinsville. He was even able to go a little bit longer on that last run and hold off the 2 of Brad Keselowski. Now he's going to have to do it for 35 more laps.
And the difference here, Rick, is the crew chiefs knew it was going to be a short run. So what did they do? Did they change air pressure or chassis? You always talk, Jeff, how bad they drive on low air pressure. They can make changes to help that, knowing they only have to go 30-something laps.
Chase Elliott's gotten slow in the middle of the corner right there. Keselowski ran him down in one corner. Chase could not hold the bottom. Keselowski into the back of the 24.
Bumper into the back of the 24 by Brad. Good battle back there for third behind these two. The 22 of Logano holding off the 18, and once again contact made. Keselowski into the back of the 24.
Now he's just looking. He knew he wasn't clear. That was more of a look just to say, hey, Chase Elliott, here I am. And that's what these bumps are in the middle of the corner. It's just to put the pressure on him, trying to make the young driver make a mistake.
He needs to be flawless for the next 33 laps. In 33 laps, they're going to catch the back of this field, too, so that's going to come into play as well.
And Rick, we've seen a lot today where the leader or the lead car can give the bottom up, just focusing on the top. But I think if you do that this late in the race, that bottom car is just going to hit you in the left rear and go by you.
Ran a little bit higher there, and once again, a little pressure from the 2.
I think Keselowski's a little faster than Chase Elliott right now. Keselowski changed up his attitude right there, entered the corner higher, trying to lead lower on exit.
Logano now giving pressure to the 2 of Keselowski. Logano way up the racetrack. That opens the door for the 18.
The 2 has a run, though, Rick.
Bottom.
Here he comes, Keselowski looking to the inside. Elliott has to go up to the second line. Keselowski making contact. Side by side again. Coming through 3 and 4 up the racetrack. Keselowski pushes the 24 up. And Brad has the lead that time by. Chase not giving up on that outside line. Now falls in behind the 2. What will he have for him for the final 29 laps? Marty.
And Rick, you can see how aggressive Brad Keselowski was being. They was reminding him, listen, the 22 is coming behind you. We don't have time to waste here. And a great point about the short run. That's what Paul Wolfe told Brad. He said, I set the air pressures back to what they were at the start of the race. Remember, we had a competition caution 45 laps in, so some savvy thinking by Paul Wolfe for the short run to the end. But Chase Elliott's not done, is he, Rick?
Not at all. And we heard earlier that Alan Gustafson was impressed with how aggressive his driver was being. Look at this, he's putting the bumper to the 2 now, trying to take that lead back away.
We saw Keselowski putting the bumper to Chase Elliott. Well, guess what that was? That was a permission slip to do the same. He fills the hole.
And now you get some tire rub once again. Is it on the right front or the left rear? Right front of the 24 or left rear of the 2. Bumper again to the back of the 2. How hungry is Chase Elliott? He wants that first win so bad.
Chase Elliott's got a difficult situation because he has Joey Logano behind him. So Chase Elliott really can't change his lane. He can't go in the high lane, try to turn underneath Keselowski, because if he opens the door for Logano, he's going to take it. Kelly.
And Alan Gustafson loves to see this aggression out of his driver, Chase Elliott. He says he's become a bit edgier as of late. Well, Chase came over the radio a couple of laps ago to say that he was just way too tight. Alan reminded him to use that track bar, use his tools inside the cockpit, and they said, hey, we got plenty of time to go to get him back.
Rick, it was well documented. The 2 of Brad Keselowski said Talladega in the round before this was a must-win. When they went there, they did it. They advanced to the round of 8. Coming to Martinsville, the 2 said this is a must-win. We don't feel we can do it at Texas or Phoenix, and here he is again, 23 to go, leading under the lights at Martinsville.
With this many laps to go and only having run the few laps that have been run, 13 laps on this run, it concerns me that Chase Elliott said tight. That concerns me because that problem normally only gets worse. You can keep running that track bar up in the air, but it can only do so much. I don't like hearing that he's tight.
There's only so much he can do. You mentioned that he could change his line if he didn't have as much pressure from the 22. Well, now there's a couple car links between the 24 and the 22, or at least 2 car links now. Does that give him a little more freedom to try to choose a different line?
100%, and that's what he has to be trying to do, and he will be. The problem with a tight race car, the reason I said I didn't like it is because I talked about earlier in the race how the car that points the quickest and changes direction the quickest, that's the guy that can go in the throttle the soonest. Well, if you can't get the car pointed, you have to wait on the throttle. You have no choice. And you can see the 22 Logano, now he's putting pressure because the 24 Chase Elliott is just not rolling the middle of the corner.
And Rick, look what this change in the lead has done to the playoff picture. The 2 is now the leader. He is in. He looks like he's going to make it to Miami with this win if he's able to hold on. And now the 24 all the way down to only 4 points above the cut line.
And remember, that used to be 35 points that separated the 2 on the cut line. Now it's just 4 points. And again, we're guaranteeing that one driver will get into the championship 4 based upon points.
But right now, Chase Elliott, you have come so close to winning several races, and it just hasn't worked out. But you have to assume that that race with the 22 is for the win. That has to be your mindset, is race that 22 like that is going to be the win, because you never know what's going to happen in these races. You might catch the 2-car in lap traffic. The 2-car might have a tire going down, something. You got to continue the fight against the 22.
Well, yeah, definitely remember the fact that there was contact made between the right front of the 24 and the left rear of the 2. Maybe that splitter cut the 2. We've seen a left rear go down. Jamie McMurray knows exactly how that is. If there is some damage to that sidewall of the tire, potentially it could go down. And as you mentioned, this could be the race for the lead.
And the battle behind these guys with the playoff cars is unreal. You have Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., and Ryan Blaney, all nose to tail and running inside the top 7.
What a great battle it has been all afternoon long here at Martinsville. And now the fight for second between Joey Logano and Chase Elliott, as about 0.8 of a second separate Keselowski and Elliott. Once that contact was made and Brad Keselowski was able to get by, it seems as though something with the 24 just isn't as good as it was the last run and the few laps that were run after the restart this last time. Marty.
Hey, Rick, you know, Jeff has always said that he never thought drivers could drive harder than they did when he was behind the wheel. But in this elimination format, Jeff, I think you'll agree, we have seen drivers rise to the occasion. We've seen Kevin Harvick win at Phoenix and win at Dover. Brad Keselowski win at Talladega. And while this was not a must-win for the 2 team, if they can hold on for 13 more laps in a crazy battle back there for third, it will be a win that they did need. And they proved once again, when they said they needed to do it, they could do it.
big contact right there. The 18 trying to force his way in, got into the 22. Those two got sideways. A lot of smoke coming out of the back of the 22 now.
And this left rear tire can affect the whole field. If it goes flat and the 22 spins out, the yellow will come out and decisions will have to be made.
The gap between 1 and 2 is 1.4 seconds now. Keselowski has that big of a lead. Now the 11 all over the back bumper of the 22, trying to take advantage of a wounded Joey Logano.
And how about the 11? What a recovery. Jeff, you talked about earlier in the race. He was battling the 22, the 2, and the 18 to stay on the lead lap, and here he is passing for the 3rd position.
Denny Hamlin fighting his way back up into the top 3.
This left rear tire on the 22 could be very costly to Brad Keselowski. If that tire goes flat, that lead of Brad Keselowski's will evaporate.
Under 10 laps to go. Smoke still coming out of the 22. How long will that tire last? Now Martin Truex Jr. is going to get by him.
Yeah, the way he's falling back, I'm not so sure it's not got a little bit of air coming out of it now. He has lost a lot of speed. Remember, he was battling for position, and now he just cannot keep the guys behind him. There it is.
And around goes the 22. Caution comes out. Under 9 laps to go at Martinsville, and there'll be a restart.
You could see that coming. You could see the speed come out of the 22 car. You had to know the air was coming out of that left rear tire. Just couldn't take it that long.
Look back at how this happened.
Yeah, so the first incident that started this was just really hard racing. The 24 car up the racetrack. 18 car tried to fill that hole underneath the 22. Logano came down. 18 car in the curb. Just, you know, Martinsville racing with a few laps to go, trying to race for a win. And then you see Blaney, one of our playoff contenders, right behind Logano. Look at that. The door just opened for Blaney to slide through.
Pit road will be open the next time by.
So now, Rick, it's all down to decisions for the crew chiefs. There are 22 cars on the lead lap. So what do these top 6 cars do? Tires are definitely worth something. These have 28 laps on them, but can you afford to give up the track position? And if these cars do pit, what about Jimmy Johnson way back in 16th? Is this the door that's going to open to allow Jimmy Johnson to do something to turn around his day? It looks like the leaders are staying out, Marty.
And Steve, Paul Wolf is making the decision to stay out. There will be some that come behind them, though, and they told him that will happen. But with 1 set of tires left, only 5 laps to go, though, just not worth the risk. But there's your takers coming onto pit road.
Rick, this is going to be very difficult for the playoff guys. I see what, 3
top 10 stayed out.
Yeah, so there's 3 cars protecting Ryan Blaney and Martin Truex Jr. for brand new tires. Dave.
Steve, you called it. Do the opposite, Jimmy was told. So the leader stayed out. Jimmy Johnson will get 4 fresh tires and try to race his way back through the field.
So few laps, though, in front of that 48 team, and they only did a 2-tire stop there for Jimmy Johnson.
And the team that's in trouble, in my opinion, is Kevin Harvick. They're essentially going to be, they have Harvick and Stenhouse Jr. They're the last 2 cars that stayed out. So Kevin Harvick, our playoff contender, currently in 11th. Everybody behind him, with the exception of Stenhouse, is going to be coming on tires.
So I agree. I think new tires are going to be far enough back that the leaders are going to be okay, or at least the lead 2, maybe the lead 3. But Kevin Harvick back there, tires are going to be on him in a hurry. And just like we heard Brad Keselowski's crew chief say, hey, I changed the air pressure so this thing will take off a little bit quicker. These cars that just pitted can do that even more. They can almost put qualifying air in. They're only going to have to run 4 laps so they can give their drivers instant grip.
And so what do you do if you're Kevin Harvick? You're back here in 9th position, right? You got tires behind you. The only thing you can do is hold the bottom. Try to stay side by side as long as you can. Kelly.
Well, it might be the break that 24 team needed. Here was their discussion.
Just think about what you can do to help it and what you can do for a short run, because we're going to have a crack at him. And if you get a chance, drill him as hard as he drilled you.
And now the team telling them to dig, dig, dig.
And Brad Keselowski has chosen the outside line for this restart. Could be the final restart here. It'll be 4 laps to go when they get to the start-finish line. Short track racing at Martinsville. 4 to go. 24 with a great restart. Up the racetrack he goes. Side by side for the lead down the backstretch. Way up the racetrack goes Chase Elliott. He opens the door down below. Here comes Denny Hamlin. Elliott has the lead, but Hamlin looks to the inside. Elliott diving, trying to block. Down the backstretch again. Less than 3 to go. The bumper to the back of the 24. Elliott goes around. Hamlin takes the lead, and the caution comes out.
Get it going if you can. Get it. Definitely wrecked me.
Denny Hamlin had the bumper to the back of the 24 a good 100 feet before they got to turn 3.
You see right here, Denny Hamlin all in the back of the 24.
Up into the wall. Remember how aggressive these drivers have been up to this point, and now the aggression even more because there's a spot in the championship for a playoff driver. Right after the restart, up the racetrack, Brad Keselowski win after that contact.
Right here, the 11 feels like he's inside the 24, and he just can't get inside the quarter panel. Tries to come back on corner exit, but can't stay there.
The 24's got the 11 cleared, and he went to the bottom to block, and I think Denny Hamlin just, I don't know if he did anticipate it or if he intentionally got into the back of him and just pushed him around, but there's no denying the 11 was back into the 24 for sure.
They're going to work on the left side of that 24. Difficult night now for Chase Elliott, as he scored 23rd and a lap down. And we're about to go overtime at Martinsville. The top two, Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch, will be up front, both with an opportunity to solidify a spot in the championship four with a win. Then look at Clint Bowyer running third, not in the playoffs, looking to turn his season around. And what a great opportunity he has in front of him.
And look what it's done to the playoffs, Rick. The 24 went from leading to the cut line, back to leading, and now 49 points out with this accident. Now Denny Hamlin shows as the leader. Jimmy Johnson, who's 24 points out currently, though, is going to restart in the 10th position with the freshest tires. We just saw how crazy it could get. There's no telling. We might see another attempt at overtime.
Well, don't forget, in third position, you said it, Clint Bowyer. Clint Bowyer has not won a race in several years. Clint Bowyer has an opportunity. We've seen him before here make aggressive moves late in the race trying to get a win. I wouldn't count him out.
Well, coming up after the checkered flag, it's continued post-race coverage live from here in Martinsville. And after the post-race, it's hashtag Victory Lap on NBCSN, where you can join the conversation on Twitter or Instagram. Send your questions and thoughts to the hashtag Victory Lap. And the show will showcase the fans' social take on this race. And I'm sure there will be a lot of opinions given about what we have seen already. This was the most recent restart.
Chase Elliott drove in the corner and ran the two way up the racetrack. That's how he got the lead.
Paul Wolf's reaction. Not happy.
Well, now we get to see this all over again. Joe Gibbs' teammates on the front row, they're not going to act like teammates. I don't think they care that they're teammates in this situation. Then behind them, Clint Bowyer in third. Martin Truex Jr. doing a great job here at Martinsville. He'll restart fourth.
Denny Hamlin has chosen the inside line. Kyle Busch on the outside. Hamlin surges ahead. Clearly out front. The 18 running second. Truex in third. Now here comes Boyer fighting back on the inside. A little bump there out of the 18. Side by side as they come back to the stripe. White flag in the air. Kyle Busch on the inside. Kyle Busch up the racetrack. He moves the 11 up. Here comes the 78 of Truex Jr. into the final turns. Martin Truex Jr. has never won on a short track. As he comes out of 4, it's a drag race. They wreck behind him. Kyle Busch will win.
Yes, sir. Checkered.
Big wreck on the front stretch. A parking lot right in front of the grandstands. Ambulance coming out to take a look at some of the cars if they're not able to continue to roll. I know Kurt Busch is right now still just sitting, and now he starts to roll. So everybody rolling well with the exception of the 18, the race winner, Kyle Busch, who now has guaranteed a spot in the championship 4. Let's look how he did it.
It's a good restart. Launches very well. Pretty much has the 18 cleared. 18 makes a good run on the outside. Looks like he's in great shape right here. Gets in the corner, just does not stay on the bottom. 18 gets into the left rear quarter panel. Opens the door, now they're side by side into turn 1. The 18 runs the 11 up the racetrack. 78 has the hole open for him now.
And this right here, I thought it was the 78's to take right here. He drives deep in the corner, but the 18 gives him plenty of room. Wants to make sure there's no contact, leaves him almost a lane and a half. Runs the outside of the racetrack, carries that momentum to the line, and they basically, the rest of the field wrecks behind it. It starts right here with Blaney and the 11 getting together. A hard hit by the 41 in the distance.
Kevin Harvick going around across the start-finish line backwards in 5th.
Take a look at this. It looks like the 24 of Chase Elliott. Now you're seeing it. 24 and the 11 having a difference.
You can hear the crowd.
Chase Elliott, once again, so close to his first win in the Monster Energy Cup Series. Denny Hamlin fighting for a spot in the championship 4. Just after the checkered flag came out, going down the backstretch, you see the 24 showing his displeasure and how he was raced by Denny Hamlin. And then it was time to talk about it.
Confetti and Monster Energy going everywhere. Kyle Busch, that was a crazy finish to this race. How did you do that?
I don't know. It's just a lot more attention on everybody else than us right now. So it's just a great win for this whole M&M's Halloween Toyota Camry. Awesome to get to victory lane here at Martinsville. You know, I wanted to win Charlotte, Martinsville, and Homestead, and that'll make us this year's champion. So we've got one of the 3, and we'll be working on more. That's really classy. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for that. So just want to say our guys did an awesome job preparing this car. We weren't the best all day, but we put ourselves in the right spots there at the end, and there was kind of chaos ensuing, and none of it was our fault. We just came out on the right end of the stick, you know. So can't say enough about NOS Energy Drink, Cessna, DVX sunglasses. My son Brexton's at home. He's not here with us this weekend, so I want to say hey to him. We'll see you later tonight, buddy. And looking forward to going to Homestead.
Kyle, to know you punched that ticket to Miami, the grandfather clock under the lights at Martinsville, it changes these next 2 weeks for you.
Oh, it certainly does. Yeah, we can go out there and race for wins and try to get more, of course, and just let everybody else have to worry, you know, and not give them a chance to breathe and get their heads on their shoulders going into that week at Homestead.
What were you thinking that final restart? Did you see things playing out the way they did?
No, I wanted to get a better restart and pinch Denny down a little bit, but it actually kind of worked out better for me that he got ahead a little bit, gave me a gap, I got down, and he got into turn 3 and just pushed up the racetrack, and I knew I had to plug that hole right away because I was just going to get beat on from behind. So I got up in there and rooted him out of the way a little bit. We dragged race down the front straightaway, and getting into one, I just wheel hopped, chattered the rear tires, and was sideways getting in there trying to calm it down with the brakes and everything else, but was able to get through there luckily somehow, I don't know how, and beat Truex off of turn 4 back to the start finish line.
Congratulations, buddy.
Awesome, thank you.
That's Kyle Busch, punched his ticket to Miami, guys.